All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to Press X Podcast. I hope everybody's doing well today. It's Monday, June 22nd. It's officially summer. And it seems like Take-Two Interactive's CEO was being very literal when he said, we're not starting marketing for GTA 6 until the summer. So here we are, the first week of summer. And of course, one of the things we will be talking about is GTA 6 because this is the week. I saw somebody in the chat asking when we think the next trailer is coming. I think the next trailer is going to drop this week alongside the pre-orders, to be honest. That's what I'm expecting. But we'll talk more about GTA. We have a few different topics we're going to be going over and discussing today at length. But yes, I hope everybody is doing well. We are talking about the PlayStation 6. Once again, we have another report. We just heard last week analysts, courtesy of Embracer Group, saying that they believe the PlayStation 6 might get delayed to 2028 or 2029. But we now have a very reliable hardware leaker and insider pretty much saying, nope. The PS6 train is still coming. It's not going to stop. So we're going to talk about that. Tarnished says MBG, Sony are absolutely out of their minds if they release a PS6 in 2027. It'll sell pretty poorly. Yeah, we'll talk about that. It feels like it's going to be impossible to not continue to discuss the PlayStation 6 until we get some concrete answers because there's so much pressure surrounding it, but there's also so much that I feel like we do know, and that's kind of what's different, I would say, this time around. Not to say we don't learn things about these consoles ahead of time, but I just mean like what you just said, Tarnished. It's like, yeah, that feels like a pretty surefire bet. But we still have time. Things can change. Things do change. They will change. But we will discuss that at length. We're also going to be talking about how Sony is now signaling to their investors the importance of their single-player games. They are making it very clear, I think, going into the next year, but also next generation, that the aggressive push that they pursued with live service this generation, they're not doing that again. So these are all things we're going to discuss, and I'm sure there's going to be other things that pop up along the way over the course of today's podcast episode. But yeah, guys, do me a favor. If you haven't already, please take a moment, hit that like button. Okay, we're sitting at 34 likes. Let's see if we can get that up to 50. If you enjoy the streams, if you enjoy Press X Podcast, and you want to support it, outside of just watching it, the easiest way to do that is hitting that like button. All right. Let me go check over to the chat here. Will Intergalactic release before the PlayStation 6? Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say it will. It seems to me like Intergalactic is going to play the same role that The Last of Us Part 2 played during the PlayStation 4 generation, where if you remember, The Last of Us Part 2 was, the long-awaited game from Naughty Dog after Uncharted 4, and it was announced pretty early, but, people were starting to wonder, like, is The Last of Us Part 2 going to be a PlayStation 5 game? But it wasn't. It launched a couple of months before the PS5 officially came out, and so it just goes to show, like, Sony will push it that far, We have Rich Rod with a $2 super chat, and he says, acknowledge MBG. Show respect by putting up, what is that, the number 1 emojis? Well, thank you for that, Rich. That's very kind. That's not necessary. It's not necessary. But I do appreciate that, Rich. I do appreciate that. Thank you, man. Yeah, but if you guys do want to support the channel directly, there are a couple of ways you can do this. You can become a channel member, which basically is your way of supporting what I do here directly on a month-to-month basis. You can gift memberships. If we hit 25 today, we'll feed the beast. You can also drop a super chat like Rich or a direct donation. These are all ways in which you can support Press X Podcast as well as what I do here on the channel. Simply could not do it without you. You guys make it so we can keep it sponsor free, and I very much appreciate that. So shout out to everybody who contributes. Thank you. I know you wish you were me. Thank you. Will Intergalactic launch with the PlayStation 6? Probably not. No. I mean, it is possible that Sony could announce that it's going to be a major cross-gen game that, will launch alongside the PlayStation 6, but it was already announced as a PS5 game, and the way Sony usually likes to do it, it's not to say that they won't have cross-gen games, but the way Sony likes to do it is they want they basically want to ensure that whatever the launch lineup for the PlayStation 6 is going to be is something that's not announced until they announce the PlayStation 6. So there is always the possibility they could decide, yeah, Intergalactic, we want to launch that with the PS6, but it might come off as a little bit underwhelming to some people. The way Sony likes to do it is they like to have brand new games that they have not revealed yet as their launch lineup titles. Could that change? Of course. They don't have to necessarily follow the same pattern that they always have. But there's no denying that Intergalactic is, at this point, it's been a long time coming, and it seems pretty clear to me that we're going to hear more about it this year. And I'm thinking it's going to be a summer 2027 game. That's what I'm thinking. Between June, July, August, possibly September of next year. Glassdoor Gamer with a $2 super chat says Microsoft putting Xbox for sale. There were reports last week about this, and basically what was being stated is that Microsoft is in the process of slimming down the Xbox division and making them much easier to sell if they do decide to sell them. So what would likely happen first is they would spin Xbox off potentially, and then maybe from that point forward, they could be picked up. Microsoft could just decide if they wanted to sell Xbox as is, but they're going to have a really hard time doing that. When you consider the amount of money that Microsoft invested into the Xbox division, especially over the last couple of years, I mean, it's going to make it very, very difficult to sell, because that's the thing. Microsoft invested like over 80 billion, probably close to like $100 billion into the Xbox gaming division. And they're out here admitting that they're basically experiencing 3% profit margins. Good luck trying to sell that. Good luck trying to find a buyer that's going to want to pick that up. So even if Microsoft's end goal is to sell the Xbox division, they still have a ton of work to do. It's not going to be easy to do that. They could always just shut it down, but that would probably be very unwise of them to do. Monster Matt, you're saying they're still making games for the PS4. PS6, I guarantee, will not come out for a couple of years. I don't know if I would say that's a guarantee, honestly, Matt. I from what we're hearing, I mean, don't get me wrong, Sony has the ultimate, say in this, of course. Sony, I told you guys, Sony's not going to make a decision until the last moment. However, it seems as though, for now, based off of everything that's going on, they're holding firm on that 2027 release. In other words, Sony absolutely does not want to delay the PlayStation 6. They do not want to delay it. It seems like something truly extreme and catastrophic would have to happen. Something truly extreme. Hold on one second. Prince G, you got to chill out, man. You got to chill out. Like, I just went to check to see if what you just posted was justified because perhaps Rich did or said something crazy. He did not. Relax. All right. See, now it just comes off like you're trying to provoke, Prince. Relax. In 2026, it is safe to say the PS5 will outsell the PS1 at 102 million units, just 8 million more this year, likely even before GTA 6 drops. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, I feel like pretty much any other time, I would have said yes. Any other time, I would have said yes. However, where we are right now, I'm actually not so sure. We're going to cover something where Sony basically is telling investors they expect PS5 sales to slow down quite a bit. In other words, the way Push Square was reporting it is Sony seems to almost be telling their investors, like, we plan to sell significantly less PlayStation 5s going forward. And this might actually be because I know it sounds antithetical, but it seems like Sony might not want to sell as much hardware. Again, I know that sounds strange because it's like, why wouldn't they want to sell more units? But I think the reason might be because they're losing money now on every PlayStation 5 sold. And it's not good for them. And so they're kind of in this awkward place where we either continue to eat the cost on every unit sold, or we come out and announce we are increasing the price of the PlayStation 5 again. And you can, you don't need me to tell you why Sony doesn't want to increase the price of the PS5 again. You don't need me to tell you that, right? So a potential strategy here is maybe trying not to overproduce the PlayStation 5, trying to produce just the right amount that people, to satiate the remaining market. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know. It really seems like Sony, just like everybody else, is starting to get squeezed, and they're really trying to hold on to, they're trying to stay in this place where they don't want to make things worse than they are. And increasing the price is going to make it worse. But also announcing significant losses due to your hardware selling well at a loss is going to hurt their bottom line too. So you can kind of begin to see why, from Sony's perspective, they're like, if we can just kind of wait this out, assuming it will correct itself, assuming it will get better, in that meantime, try not to sell a ton of PlayStations. I know that sounds crazy, but it does seem like that's kind of what they're signaling potentially. Blonde with a $2 super chat says, if Sony can buy Xbox, rename the PlayStation 6 to PSX. Well, I can tell you this, Blonde, we won't have to worry about that because there's no possibility of Sony buying Xbox. Perhaps if Microsoft were to sell off individual studios, maybe. IP, perhaps. Hellbound, what's up, man? Early 2028 could be maybe like only a 6-month delay and still not affect the contracts. Well, I'll tell you this. I could see Sony doing potentially a 6-month delay if there is a sign, if they have some kind of evidence to go off of that indicates within 6 months, something's going to change. That's kind of where we are right now. It's these corporations are afraid to make any significant announcements or moves because the market is so volatile and things are at risk of changing at a moment's notice that it really is kind of like stay in a holding pattern right now. But there's speculation running rampant. There are people who believe that things are not improving until 2030. There are people that believe things are just not improving ever. This is the new way forward. There are people who believe that things are going to be different come this time next year. So Sony can't predict these things, but they obviously have connections. Sony has people in places that they can talk to that can give them a much better evaluation, and that will ultimately allow them to have a better determination on what they should do going forward. But we'll get deeper into that we'll just start with that. So I will read a couple of the reports to you guys here. First, we're starting with Push Square. They say the cost of hardware is through the roof, and this isn't a problem that's unique to Sony at all. Earlier this year, the Japanese giant announced insane price hikes to its console family, which has seemingly slowed hardware sales down to a crawl. Rival products like the Switch 2, the Xbox Series consoles, and even Steam Deck have all been struck by similar issues. The reason for the disruption is due to an increase in demand for memory components led by AI. Some manufacturers have signed lucrative deals with data centers, leaving less readily available parts for consumer products, thus pushing the prices up. It's just another hurdle in a turbulent generation for PlayStation And it sounds like Sony aims to mitigate the impact by selling fewer PS5s. Buried in a massive business document that was published earlier this week, they stated this, quote, "In hardware, although Sony expects to be affected by the impact of increased prices and supply shortages of memory semiconductors, it plans to manage the impact on profitability by flexibly adjusting plans for, among other things, unit sales and promotions," end quote. So, in other words, it expects to sell fewer PS5 consoles moving forward, and it's unlikely to offer any hardware promotions during times like Black Friday and Christmas. It's unfortunate because this means that the PS5, which had been selling similarly to the PS4 at a higher price up until this point, is now going to fall behind. Remember, at this stage in its life cycle, a PS4 could be purchased for as little as $300, often with big games like Marvel Spider-Man bundled with it, while the cheapest PS5 currently is $600 on its own. One thing that's particularly interesting is that, judging by Sony's statement, selling fewer units will actually improve its profitability. This is likely because the cost of memory has gone up so much. It's presumably losing money on each console sold right now, despite the huge price hikes. So yes, this is also what Push Square is assuming as well. And I don't know, man. This is quite a fascinating situation for PlayStation to be in, for the PS5 to be in. But they highlight that, yeah, at this point in time, you could buy a PS4 at $300 with a big game bundled in. That simply doesn't exist in any way, shape, or form with the PS5. Rich Rod, excuse me, with a $2 chat says, EO232, from now on, I can't talk. Your first post must be number one. You and Gaming Survivor, man. Thank you, Rich. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, this is what Push Square is reporting. And, unfortunately, Sony, when they give these statements to their investors, we have no choice but to really kind of dig into them and try to extract as much as we can, because they always kind of keep it vague and they word it in such a way where it can almost mean different things. But yeah, when you consider the fact that just recently Microsoft came out, now keep in mind the Xbox Series X console is being sold at a similar price point that the PS5 is, and these consoles are very similar to one another. I do think it's probably a little bit more expensive for the Xbox Series X to be manufactured than it is the PlayStation 5. But when you consider that Asha Sharma, CEO of Xbox, just came out and said, we're losing hundreds of dollars on every unit sold, I can't imagine Sony is in a very different position, right? So this is where, when we talk about the PlayStation 6 and we talk about what Sony's going to do, it does seem like Sony may have no choice but to sell the PlayStation 6 at a loss. They might be kind of using what's going on right now as a barometer of sorts to try to see, like, okay, well, how bad is it going to be potentially when we decide to launch the PlayStation 6? How much money are we going to lose on each unit sold if it stays the same, or if it gets worse? I'm sure they're working out all these different, as they put it, like simulations. But it's interesting to think that right now, it's interesting to think that they are in a position where they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't, you know? All right. Guys, please no politics in the chat. We're talking about the PlayStation 6. Relax. Yeah, don't. Come on. But we have another report here for the PlayStation 6. And it's interesting to kind of get these reports back to back. It says, although we're getting closer to 2027, Sony has yet to make any official announcement about the PlayStation 6, despite the silence on the matter, especially amidst the rising cost of components. A recent report from Embracer Group analysts suggests the next generation system may actually end up releasing in 2028 or even 2029. However, there's a good chance these fears of delays will remain unwarranted, judging by the reaction of known AMD hardware leaker Kepler L2. And we have the Gaming Ledger with a $5 super chat. Thank you, buddy, saying PlayStation is in an excellent position when it comes to cash on the balance sheet to experiment with hardware subsidies or even redo some R&D if needed. Well, that's true. Sony is coming off of two very successful generations, the PS5 being even more successful than the PS4 and profitable. So you're right. They do have a fair bit of money that they're sitting on that if they need to leverage that in order to, I guess you could say, solve certain problems, find solutions to problems that maybe are unexpected or not necessarily something that was even obvious, right? Going into next generation. You're right. They do have some level of flexibility here. I do find it interesting that right now, the biggest thing Sony seems to be signaling is a kind of regression. And I don't say that in a bad way. I'm actually using that term in a positive way, where they are basically taking some steps back. And, this whole idea of trying to push out there, this whole idea of trying to push out there and expand and we have to saturate the market with our IP and everything else. It's like that's going to take a back seat or just not even be a focus right now in favor. We need to go back to true exclusives. We need to go back to what we had to do previously, in order to be successful. It's interesting to me that this is where we are now, but you're not wrong. Sony does have a pretty good cash flow, and they have the ability to make some changes of their own if they need to. If they need to. So thank you for that, Gaming Ledger. We also have a continuation here of this report where it says, in a reply to a NeoGAF forum thread focused on the analyst report mentioned above, the AMD leaker, Kepler L2, dropped the iconic Danny DeVito Nope animated GIF from the TV show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, flatly dismissing any possibility of such a significant delay. It's not the first time the leaker has suggested a delay is not on the table for Sony, no matter the current market conditions, as AMD would not waste resources validating the next generation system if a delay were a concrete possibility. It continues by saying, while Kepler L2 did not explicitly explain why the PlayStation 6 is not being delayed, the insider strategically liked a post by another user detailing exactly why such a long delay does not make any sense. So this is what the user said, and Kepler L2 agreed with this user. Quote, delaying the console when it's basically done does not make any sense. They have TSMC contracts for production of APUs, maybe even GDDR7 contracts with memory makers. R&D done that costed them a few $100 million. PS5 sales are slowing down, and there is no guarantee that memory prices will drop between now and 2030. Releasing it in 2027, several million units sold before 2030. When memory price drops, you just lower the price of the console and gain massive market share on top of what you've already sold. Releasing it in 2030, however, no sales. In 2030, memory prices could be lower, the same, or higher. You start from scratch. The analysis from this NeoGAF member was liked by Kepler L2, and it echoes what another known leaker, Moore's Law is Dead, noted back in March of this year. After securing its TSMC 3-nanometer manufacturing allotment for Q2 of 2027, pulling out now wouldn't just cause a minor delay, as it would also cost Sony a priority fab status, resulting in a much longer setback. In addition, Sony already has a history of launching systems under challenging market conditions, so launching the PlayStation 6 under the current component climate wouldn't be anything new for the Japanese company. If the PlayStation 6 is indeed launching in 2027, Sony is likely targeting a late year release. As such, we may only be a few months away from an official reveal of a system that is said to deliver 4K 120 FPS gaming across the board with enhanced PSSR and advanced ray tracing. So there you go, man. If you're somebody who is kind of banking on the idea of Sony delaying the PS6, I completely understand. I do, and I agree that there are so many things right now that tell us that's a thing they'll do. But when we look deeper into it and when we listen to the insiders and the leakers that are on the ground floor with AMD, they understand how these contracts are made, they understand how the manufacturing is done. They're all saying the same exact thing, which is there is no way Sony is going to undo any of this because it's going to cost them not only a ton of money but time that they can't get back. It's gonna mess literally everything up. And so essentially what you need to know is that the risk of them delaying the PlayStation 6 is greater than them just trying to launch it. That's where we're at right now. Buttery Cheeks with a $5 super chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, MBG, I played GTA 5 back day one, back in 2013 on the PS3 when I was 24 years old. Now playing GTA 6 day one, I'll be 37. Feels wild, LOL, but I'm hyped AF. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those memes going around. A lot of people just kind of tracking the history of GTA, basically how like starting with GTA 3 or Vice City or San Andreas, they're like, Mom, Dad, can I have this game? And, then when they're a teenager being asked to see ID to where now they're just like a full blown adult and, they're just going to be able to secure the game on their own. And yeah, I agree with you, Buttery Cheeks. It is a situation where, when I think about my history with GTA, I mean, it's pretty much exactly that. Now, you say GTA 5 back in 2013. I wasn't 24 in 2013, but it's crazy because I do explicitly remember like the first time playing GTA 5 and how I'm like, man, this is we've come a long way, because I remember playing GTA San Andreas and I remember playing GTA Vice City on my PlayStation 2. That was one of the first games I got on, the PlayStation 2. It was a game that not only I asked for, but I remember I got like the strategy guide and everything else. And so it is really cool to start to feel the hype building up because it's real now. Like the pre-orders are opening up and the delay, there is no delay. Like it's actually happening. And so, yeah, even going from being a younger adult to an older adult into GTA 6, it feels this is why I tried to say when I talk about GTA 6, like it really does feel like a special game, feels like a special event. So thank you for that, Buttery Cheeks. I'm also hyped AF. Titus, what's up, man? Guys, do me a favor. Make sure you hit that like button. All right, we're sitting at 69 likes. Thank you for that. Let's see if we can bump that up to 100. It helps the streams tremendously. If that's the only other way you can help out the stream other than watching it, please do so. Been playing GTA since top down on PC in the 90s before even went to the PS1. Now that's OG right there. Even I can say I did not play the original first two Grand Theft Auto games. I didn't know what Grand Theft Auto was until GTA 3. And even when I first experienced GTA 3, I was a little bit like, this is kind of crazy. I've never seen anything like this, but I just had no idea. Like when I first played GTA 3, I automatically assumed like, oh, this was like a major game that's been around for a long time. And it's like, no. Like, sure, it's the third one in the series, but the first two are nothing. You wouldn't even recognize it. Thank you, Titus. I'm doing well today. My pain isn't as bad. Still have some pain, but it's not as bad as it was yesterday and the day before. So, I'll take what I can get. 70 likes now. We're actually at 76. Thank you for that. But getting back to the discussion about the PlayStation 6, we will talk more about GTA as we go further on here. But with the PlayStation 6, so just to recap, because, people are filing in, some people leave, some people come back. What you need to know is that the PlayStation 6 is going to launch 99% chance, I should say, it's going to launch November 2027. Everything that Sony has set up, everything that they've prepared, including their contracts with AMD, I do think a potential 6-month delay could happen. But if you think about that, realistically speaking, and we actually have to try to be realistic about this, what is that going to do? If the PlayStation 6 is, you know, originally set to launch November 2027 and it gets delayed to like March or April of 2028, is that going to be like, is that just going to suddenly change everybody's perception of the PlayStation 6 to where it's like, I wasn't going to buy one in November of 2027, but now I'm definitely going to buy one, in March, April, or May of 2028. The only way that happens is if Sony decides to say, okay, we actually are going to be able to drop the price significantly. That's the only way. So basically what I'm trying to say is by the time we get to June, July of next year, we're going to have a much better idea of whether or not prices are going to come down within the next 12 months. And it's impossible for me to determine that now, but what this article highlights is something that I do want to mention as well. It's the fact that Sony is no stranger to trying to launch next generation consoles in challenging market conditions. However, I will say this might be the most challenging that they've ever experienced. And we have a direct donation from Rich Rod. Thank you, buddy. He says, this $2 is for seeing how gangsta Mrs. MBG can get. Rip to the band. Yeah, no one is safe. Today is reckoning day. Yes. Uh-oh. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, man, I'm just trying to run my show here, and I'm just going to let my mods do their job. My mods at this point know what I want. They know what I expect. I just ask people to be respectful. If there's arguments going on and somebody can't be the bigger person and walk away from it, or they just can't sort it out, it's just going to be removed because I'm not trying to make my chat a chaotic place. Like, you can be literally anywhere on the internet, having arguments. I don't want it in my chat. I want people to be able to get along. But thank you for the direct donation, Rich Rod. Sir Digital Dude with a $5 super chat says, did you see the leak of the GTA 6 Collector's Edition, including a small bag of Fent? It's crazy, LOL. I did not see that, Digital Dude. I am going to assume that was a fake AI created Collector's Edition because there is no chance whatsoever that Rockstar would ever consider doing something like that. It does, you can't even, when you consider what GTA is though in the history of this game, you can't even say that sounds crazy. You can't even say it sounds crazy. I mean, they wouldn't do that obviously, but we will see, man. There's some interesting takes about GTA 6 going around across the internet right now. And a lot of them I disagree with. Many I do. But no, Digital Dude, I did not see this. I'm kind of glad I didn't. MBGU said Sony's bleeding money from selling PS5s. How are they going to sell PlayStation 6? Pricing should be contentious. I think they'll rely on a portable PS6 and promote cloud streaming as an alternative. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that, Tarnished. Like, when we ask the question, how is Sony going to make this work? Okay, if it's true that things are just really not going well, economically speaking, the component crisis is not improving, and we are barreling down the holiday 2027 release for the PlayStation 6, and Sony is committed. They're going to make this happen no matter what. Part of the reality is, yeah, the PlayStation 6 might get off to a very slow, maybe even just bad start, right? Like, I'm not trying to be negative here, but it's just a possible outcome and a reality. It's easy to say that now because we aren't seeing Sony ramp up the marketing and create the FOMO, but I'll tell you, I say this as somebody where I was covering PlayStation from the transition from the PS4 to the PS5, okay? I was covering that entire transition. Believe me when I tell you, the energy that I'm seeing collectively is, I don't want to say the exact opposite, but dramatically reduced. Noticeably dramatically reduced compared to where we were at the same time going from the PS4 to the PS5. The amount of people that I come across that they're not like anti PlayStation or anything, but they're just like, I'm kind of good. Like, I'm good with my PS5 Pro or even just my base PS5. I'm especially good if the PS6 is going to be ridiculously priced at $800, $900, $1,000, which I still don't think Sony's going to do that. I think Sony would rather eat the cost and try to make it up later than come out with $1,000 box. Because if I'm telling you, this is why I've tried to tell you guys, like, they go $800, $900, even $1,000. I mean, they could take the opposite road where it's like, we'll come out with a high price, low sales, but profitable box. Halfway through the generation, cut the price almost in half. Start selling at volume, you know? They could do that, but I mean, it might be wiser to go in the opposite direction at that point, you know, where it's like, come in, eat the cost, and assume it's a risk, but assume you can recoup that cost at the end of the gen and make it profitable when it's all said and done. Sony has done that before. They have done that before. Figuratively literal with a $5 chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, it's interesting that Sony are actively trying to sell less PS5s than originally intended to mitigate losses. What a crazy generation. I agree that this is quite literally the most unexpected outcome that I could have seen, because we started this generation with a struggle. You know, Sony came out and they're like, hey, we're launching a PS5 during a pandemic. And it wasn't, you know, pricing or money or people not being able to afford the console that became the problem. What became the problem is they couldn't secure components. The components didn't exist because they literally weren't being manufactured for numerous reasons. And it took literally years for that to be sorted out. And then once it got sorted out, they had this peak around the 2023, 2024 period. But now a whole new problem, you know, was looming in the distance. And now we're feeling the full effects of that problem. It's in full swing. And yes, now the solution for Sony is to try to not produce as many PS5s, because it's either that or increase the price of the console again. But the one thing Sony definitely wants to avoid is having to report to their investors over the next fiscal year, like, here are the massive losses we've occurred from selling tens of, you know, maybe not tens, but like millions more PS5s, because we've had to eat hundreds of dollars on every one sold. It is wild. It's wild. And it really, that's like the number one thing that makes you wonder, like, geez, Sony, what are you going to do if you can't avoid this at the start of next gen? You're going to produce less PS6s? Sir Digital Dude with another $5 chat. Thank you, buddy. You're saying, Asha, we hear you. So here's a Sea of Thieves movie. Dude, a Sea of Thieves movie. You know what? I mean, you're joking about that, but that's probably going to happen. That's probably going to happen. It feels like every game these days is getting a movie. I just saw that even Dead by Daylight's getting a full feature film. Oh, wait, you're saying it's real? Oh, man. Dude, I mean, I know I just said I could see it being real, but I was still kind of joking, dude. Saying check Shinobi? Okay. Hold on. Oh, boy. Wait, what is this? I came across something else that I'll check out. Nicolas Cage, tactical operator, hits Black Ops 7 in Warzone. Okay. You know what? Can't be upset about that. That's actually pretty cool. Yep. You weren't kidding, Digital Dude. Live action Sea of Thieves film in development, produced by Destin Daniel Crenton, known for Shanghai, Spider-Man, Brand New Day. Wow. Okay. Dude, I thought you were joking, but we are apparently getting a Sea of Thieves movie already. Do you know what they should do? You know what would be so great? Like, I'm going to give them the easiest win right now. You ready? Easiest win. Thank me later. Make sure you cast Johnny Depp. All right? Make sure you cast Johnny Depp in this Sea of Thieves movie. And I promise you it'll be a success. To some extent. To some extent. I mean, come on, you know why. Do I really need to explain why? I'm on all messages, Ray. I'm ahead of you this time. We need Temu Captain Jack Sparrow. Retired Captain Jack Sparrow. Mario B. By the way, they did a collab. Just a heads up. I'm pretty sure there was a Sea of Thieves Pirates of the Caribbean collab at some point. Mario B with a super chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, I thought a company like Sony would pre-stock their components for the PS6, which could keep the costs at least palpable. Well, you're not wrong about that, Mario. What's likely going to happen is there's a certain... So when Sony secured the manufacturing timeline of the PlayStation 6 APU, they secured this probably a year ago, a year and a half, somewhere around there. And so there was a fixed price that was likely agreed upon. So the real problem is going to be Sony trying to determine. So like, let's assume they produce 10 million PS6s at a fixed cost. And so therefore they can afford for the first 10 million to sell it at a certain price point without, obliterating their profit margins. The question then becomes, though, what about the next 10 million? What about the next 10 million? And that next 10 million will be determined, by that next 10 million will be determined by where we are with the RAM crisis and the manufacturing costs and all that, where, there could be a really strange situation where, okay, I just had to bring up Johnny Depp, didn't I? There could be a really strange situation where it's like the PS6 launches at a really great price point, and then after like 6 months, it's like, okay, now it's going up again. The price is going up. I don't know. You're not wrong, Mario. It's just when Sony does, it's unlikely that Sony secured a contract with AMD. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did for like many more millions than we would think at a fixed price, but I doubt it. I don't think AMD would agree to that. Like, for example, I don't think AMD would agree, like, oh, we're going to sign a contract for 30 to 40 million units at a fixed price, because, of course, AMD is going to be aware that, component prices fluctuate and change. So it's like, we'll agree to 10 million, and then we'll take it from there. That's my assumption. That's my assumption. I'm sure AMD, AMD doesn't want to get screwed either, right? And they have to look out for themselves too. So you're telling me we're getting a Helldivers 2 movie and a Sea of Thieves movie? MBG, I'm going to surprise my nephew with a GTA 6 pre-order this week. He's not going to see it coming. That's awesome. That's actually awesome, man. Any PS6 games that may have been PS6 exclusive are now 100% getting PS5 ports. I mean, I feel like they have to, yeah. I mean, I've talked to you guys about the idea of Sony wanting to go in the direction of true PlayStation 6 exclusives and how there could be some benefit to that. But you're taking a risk at this point in time where everything else is going to be cross-gen. I don't know. If the cost of the PlayStation 6 is going to be that much and you really don't want to eat hundreds of dollars on every sale, then yeah, you're basically what Sony's going to be forced to do is rely heavily, and I mean heavily, on the PS5 installed base. Whoa, Ghetto God. Ghetto God's, he's on something today too. Hold on, I need to go check this Black Ops 7 Nicolas Cage operator. Wow. Okay. I mean, it could be worse. It definitely could be worse. Let me show you guys this real quick. It's funny because I remember Nicolas Cage was added to Dead by Daylight, and I think Nicolas Cage was like, "Yeah, my son plays Dead by Daylight," and he thought it would be cool if I was in the game. There it is, Call of Duty, Nick Cage in Call of Duty. I mean, it's not that bad, you know. Like, if anything, Nicolas Cage does. You know what though? Get him in for the Call of Duty movie. There's a Call of Duty movie in development. Get Nick Cage on board. It's the face-off version of Nick Cage. Oh, man. Well, I'm going to be honest. They should have saved it for Modern Warfare 4. I have a direct message from, or tip. I don't know why I call it direct message. Got a direct message from Titus. He's DMing me. I got a direct donation from Titus. He says, with a $2 chat, I think the PS6 comes November 2027. Anything over $900 Sony eats. The first 25 million users are the hardcore, so we'll probably pay for the more expensive machine. Yeah, I think that's a viable option for Sony, truthfully, because you're not wrong, right? Like, Sony does have a hardcore following. They have a hardcore base of PlayStation players and buyers that I think that, the question of how many, like, what is that number? How many PlayStation players are truly hardcore enough to buy a very expensive PlayStation 6? 10 million, I think, is doable. Maybe even 20 million. But beyond that, I don't know. 20 million might be pushing it. I think it really boils down to, like, the PlayStation 5 Pro might be that, and the PS3, and when the PS3 first launched. Look at the data from the PS5 Pro and the PS3, because these are like the most expensive premium machines Sony's ever released, but especially the PS3 out of the gate. They could maybe base it off of that. MBG, it's a question of if Sony has enough faith in selling PS6s in the first place. Do they have faith in their games being the main selling point of the PlayStation 6 if they're exclusive? Chicken and egg question. You're not wrong. The Steelers with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Steelers. He says, with how small the leap will be going forward, this could be mitigated a little if these manufacturers would just normalize 10-year cycles. You a 5-year refresh pro console for the techies. Yeah, I mean, it is tantalizing to think about how differently the remainder of this generation could play out if Sony had the intention of pushing it to the year 2030. But I think where things really, I think, get messed up here is it's exactly what you're saying. Like, in order for that to happen, it would have to be normalized. If you look at the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation, that generation went on forever. Like, I think that did go on for like 10 years, give or take. I remember people by the end of that generation were like, oh my God, like, come on, let's get a move on now. That was impacted, I think, by the 2008 financial crisis. And that had that basically caused a massive delay. But unless I'm misremembering, I'm pretty sure that's what the trajectory, right? Like, because the PS3 and the 360 were supposed to be normal console gens that were wrapping up around 6-7 years in. In order for us to normalize 10-year console generations, my assumption is there would have to be a new market to tap into to sell consoles to, because it seems to me that 7-year console cycle, it's not just a random number. It's not like, oh, well, 7 years sounds good. I think that number is based on if we have a market saturation point of around, like, just speaking for PlayStation, anywhere between 80 to 125 million, give or take, excluding the PS2 getting that massive extra bump because of many different reasons. My assumption is they've basically crunched the numbers and realized that 7 years is around the time you're going to hit that saturation point. And it's interesting because if you look at where we are now with the PS5, it's like, yeah, we're getting ready to approach that 100 million. I think 100 million is probably looked at as close to the saturation point. Anything going beyond that is a real fight. So I think that's why, like, if we were to talk about extending the PlayStation, see, what people don't really think about is that if Sony were to extend the PS5 generation to the 10-year mark for 2030, they would have to, basically come up with a very specific and strategic game plan to continue to sell millions of PlayStation 5s going into 2028, 29, and 2030. And that's going to be really hard to do for numerous reasons. But the biggest reason being that you've hit your saturation point. So it would kind of force Sony in this position where it's like you now need to find a way to sell now the most expensive PlayStation console ever this deep into a generation to millions more people. Basically, what I'm trying to say here, Steelers, is that from Sony's perspective, trying to make that decision of, do we try to extend the generation and sell this console to a market that's currently not buying it, or start a new generation? It's kind of like what Titus said, and sell a new console to a market that we know, even though that number might be much smaller now, but they'll be there nonetheless. It's kind of like just hedging your bets. What do you feel more confident in? I think Sony ultimately does feel more confident in. We know there are millions of PlayStation players that'll buy a PlayStation 6 at $800 or $900. We know that. What we don't know is if there's 5 to 10 million people out there right now that would buy a PlayStation 5 today, tomorrow, next year, the year after for $600, $650. I think that's what it boils down to. But the idea of planning for a 10-year console cycle does sound interesting to me. What interests me the most about that is what the game plan would be to really try to aggressively push the console out there. Because we do have to keep in mind that Sony, with like the PS4, that was another console that was planned for a 6, 7, 8-year console gen. And by the end of that generation, they're selling PS4s at $300, sometimes $250. And you can see how that definitely pushes them past the 100 million mark, gets them to 110, 115 maybe even 120, given enough time. But there just comes this point of diminishing returns. Dune with a $5 super chat says, I'd spend $900 on a PlayStation 6 if I'm really impressed with the performance. If it's not much better than a PS5 Pro, I'll wait. And that's another thing. See, Dune, you're highlighting another problem that the PlayStation 6 is going to run into, that the PS5 already ran into this problem a little bit, but it's going to be even worse for the PS6, where these studios are going to have to find a way to wow people. And I mean, look at games like God of War, Alpha and Wolverine, and even something like Saros, that just came out. I mean, these games look incredible, and they're all running at 60 frames per second. So I mean, I don't want to. I'm the last person to not give Sony the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, I don't want to assume that their studios aren't already working on stuff that when we see it first revealed on the PlayStation 6, it's going to be like, oh, okay. So that does look next gen. But that's the thing, man. I feel like if you look at the transition from the PS4 to the PS5, a lot of people were wowed by what they saw, but there definitely still were people that were like, I don't know. How much of a difference is there between Horizon Forbidden West on the PS5 versus the PS4? Like, there is a difference. But it's not like that massive, huge generational leap difference. And that's the result of, well, yeah, we're at the beginning point of reaching those diminishing returns. Going from the PS5 to the PS6, we're now at the midpoint. So it's going to be even less noticeable. We have a hold on, I have to increase this. Another direct donation from Titus. Thank you, Titus. He says the PS6 will be the technical baseline for forever gaming, in my opinion. There will be upgrades, maybe, but this label 120 hertz 4K will be enough for most. Titus, I do have a question. So you're saying the PS6, did you mean the PS5? I just want to confirm this, so I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. You did mean the PS6. Okay, so you're saying the PS6 will be the technical baseline for gaming, for forever gaming. I mean, it's interesting because if you're correct about that, then that does mean we are going to move on from the PS5 at some point, but we're not really going to move on from the PS6. And that kind of does make sense because, I mean, if we're talking about saturating the market with 4K 120 FPS gaming, obviously it can go higher. You know, we can do 8K, 240 hertz or something. You know, we can do that stuff, but you start to see the diminishing returns there to a degree where people are like, I don't want that. Hold on. You know what? You're the second person to mention that pushing polygons. Let me check. So I got to tell you guys, just on an aside here, I don't know what YouTube did, but people have been telling me that they're getting ads during my streams. I want it to be understood that every day when I go to set my stream up, they ask me, turn monetization on. Yeah, it's all right. You know, it's turned on across my channel. But then they ask for mid-roll ads, and they give me 3 options. They give me automatic, scheduled, and manual. I'm looking at it right now. I'm in settings, mid-roll ads, mode. I have it set to manual. So what that means is there's a button at the top of my stream, at the top of my YouTube studio, that if I click it, it'll run an ad. And obviously I don't click that button, but it's in my control. So if you're getting ads on the stream, my only guess at that point is there's some kind of bug or glitch going on with YouTube, because people were telling me like 2 streams ago, they're like, yeah, I've been getting ads. And I'm like, that's weird. And I went to check my settings, and my settings, it was set to automatic ads. And I'm like, I didn't do that. It was just there. So right now on my end, it says it's set to manual. So I'm gonna hit it 45 times. How crazy would that be? Every minute I'm dropping an ad. No. It would be interesting to experiment to see if I dropped an ad every 5 minutes, how's that change my revenue? But who wants to watch that? I don't want to watch that. All right, sorry about that. So yeah, Mrs. MBG was just informing me of a couple things. She was saying that apparently, yeah, there are ads like that are playing for people, and it's like interrupting the stream. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye on this. I'm fairly certain this is a bug on YouTube's end. So if you are experiencing that, I do apologize, but it doesn't seem as though there's anything I can do about it. Hold on. I'll double check one more time. Okay. I think YouTube's guys, I think YouTube is experimenting right now. I'm not even kidding. I think they're experimenting with trying to do what Twitch does. I think Twitch does it. I don't know, but it seems like they're experimenting with trying to just run ads during streams because you know how I just told you I went to go check and it said on my end for monetization mode, it's set to manual. As I was talking to Mrs. MEG, my YouTube studio crashed. I rebooted it. You know, it crashes like 5 to 6 times every time I'm streaming for some reason. Now it says it's set to automatic. What I'm starting to wonder is if every time my YouTube studio crashes, if it's resetting the mid-roll ads, which it never used to do. But I guess just continue to let me know. I'll try to keep an eye on it as best I can, but that's very strange. I've never seen this happen before. All right. Let me catch up here. We have Sean Mitchell. Sean Mitchell says, well, hold on. I know you wish you were me with a $2 super chat. He says, based on what impresses, what's the lineup? Or based on that impression, what's the lineup? So you're talking about the PlayStation 6 lineup. I mean, a couple of games we know about that are in development for the PlayStation 6. If Sony can do this right, they would have a lineup that I think would make people go, oh my God. Just in my opinion. If the stars align for the PlayStation 6 event next year, I'm not going to list all the games, of course, because there's stuff we don't know about, like partners that they're working with, but like 3 games that could potentially be ready, 4 perhaps, that could be ready to be announced as PS6 launch window titles. Maybe. Venom, a new Uncharted from Naughty Dog, Fizzant from Kojima Productions, and possibly Media Molecule's next game. And if I really want to push it, another Astrobot title. Those are just the games that we kind of know about, you know? And not all those games would launch day one on the PS6, but those are games that Sony could potentially show to be like, here's why you're going to want a PS6. And that's pretty significant, you know? Like that's kind of a crazy lineup. And that's not even counting stuff we don't know about. So Sean Mitchell, a member for 38 months. Thank you for that, buddy. He says Fizzant reveal will be the deciding factor for upgrading from the Pro to the PS6 and what it can do better than the Pro. It will have to be substantial. It's interesting that you were you were thinking of Fizzant as well. Kojima's known to push the hardware to its limits. His teams are known to do that. I imagine Fizzant is going to do that. I mean, he already said when it was first announced in January of 2024 that they want to really blur that line between like when somebody walks by and they see it on screen, they think you're watching a movie. Or like the graphics look that real where they think it's a show or a movie. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, I mean, if there's any studio that can maybe pull that off with the PlayStation 6 hardware, I could see Kojima Productions being the one. So I'm with you on that. Fizzant, I think would be wise of Sony to have that game. I don't know if they're going to be able to push Kojima to do it, but it would be very wise of them to have that game at the reveal of the PlayStation 6. That would be big, I think. And if you're Sony, you're probably Sony right now is probably like, hey, Kojima, when do you think you're going to have the first trailer ready? I mean, keep in mind a couple of months ago, Kojima posted on his Twitter that Sony came to visit and he showed them something in their like movie screening room. I mean, what do you think he showed them? Here's a movie I wanted to show you guys, Sony. Oh, you wanted to see the game? Yeah, we didn't make any progress yet. Still working on OD. Glassdoor Gamer with a $2 super chat says Steam Machine dead on arrival with those prices. Did they announce the prices? Hold on. Sorry, yeah, I'm backed up on the chat. Let me read the next super chat and I'll go see. Pushing Polygons with a $5 super chat says, I've seen reports of HDMI 2.2 devices at CES in January with TVs on the docket. Possible PS6 will have HDMI 2.2. Bandwidth will be a question mark, possible 240 hertz. I mean, yeah, I could see the PS6 shipping with that potentially. I imagine Sony's going to try to have every possible technical feature, every cutting edge feature they can within reason. I could see them making that a priority for the PS6 where like because at first, yeah, they're gonna have to try to appeal to the people where this is what matters to them, you know? Hold on. Oh my lord. Oh my god. I thought dude, wow. All right, hold on. Let me bring this up. Let me bring this up. So we have the official pricing of the Steam machine, and it's looking, I'm just going to say it, it's looking nuts. See if I can bring it up on screen for you guys. Mockwee Ninja, you're saying Steam machine over $1,000 with no controller? Get the fuck out of here, bro. Yeah, let me show you guys. He's not lying. He's not lying. So this was posted by Shinobi. Let me try to center it for you. Steam machine official pricing, 512 gigabytes without controller, $1,050. 512 gigabytes with the controller, $1,128. 2 terabytes without the controller, $1,350. 2 terabytes with the controller bundle, $1,428. What's funny is I'm looking at these prices. And I'm having flashbacks to when the Steam machine was first announced. And the flashbacks specifically that I'm having are when we were discussing the idea of the Steam machine being an actual like competitor to something like PlayStation, like the PlayStation 5 perhaps, or even the upcoming PlayStation 6 or what Xbox is doing. I mean, without any layer of hyperbole, I'm not going to say it's DOA. Okay. Here's why I'm not going to say that. Saying it's DOA would imply that there's some kind of expectation here. Maybe we created that expectation, where we all assumed that Valve is serious about putting out a device that's going to penetrate the market. The only thing this thing's going to penetrate are are the wallets of the hardcore Steam fans that really want the hardware. That's the only thing this is going to penetrate. Although the same could be said for everybody going forward. But Valve is the first one, dude, where they're like, it's $1,000 minimum, bro. Okay. It's not going to be a mass market device. Any possibility of this thing being like, see, this is why I was saying, you guys, like, I don't think it's about competition. I don't think it's about competition going into next generation. Now, granted, this is Steam. This is them with their own hardware. They're a privately owned company. Valve hasn't really signaled at all that they're trying to go after Sony or even Microsoft. So to me, here's my read on this. Them coming out and announcing these prices, knowing full well what the reactions are going to be, it's just them saying it's for those who want it. We're not, it's for the hardcore enthusiast. We're not trying to sell to anybody but that. Because you can't. So, rumor Helix might have versions without a controller, maybe a new market trend now with prices so high. I mean, how sad is it getting? Yeah, dude, like, could the PlayStation 6 be sold without a DualSense? But knowing Sony, the DualSense 2 is going to be one of the main features. Here are the improvements. Oh, man. What are we doing? What are we doing? So what are people? I mean, how are people reacting to this? I can't imagine it's positively. Tarnished Gamer with a $5 chat says, "Is this a surprise in 2026? It has a Zen 4 chip and 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. No company's going to subsidize hardware with this current RAM shortage." To be honest, it's not surprising. But I will say I think that this is like the first. It feels like this is the tip of the spear in a way, where it's like everybody was anticipating the Steam machine would be extremely expensive. And there were many rumors claiming that, yeah, this thing's going to be like, it's not going to be priced at like a console, right? Or like what you're used to with consoles. And that's why I think it's funny, because like even just a year ago, we were talking about that possibility. But where we are now, no, I don't think it's surprising. The thing about Valve that's good for them here, though, is there any? It depends on which perspective you're taking. From a consumer perspective, this isn't really good for anybody. This isn't good for anybody. But from Valve's perspective, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, the benefit to Valve here and what makes this so different from Sony, because I know what people might be thinking. We're like, oh my God, if the Steam machine is coming in at over $1,000 without a controller, the PS6 is cooked. I mean, the thing is, Steam, Valve doesn't have to subsidize anything, because they can literally look at this machine and just be like, yeah, we didn't even have to do this. And we just picked the worst time to do it, so whatever. Like, they can sell 3 million of these things, and it's fine. That's the difference between Valve and Sony. Sony's business model hinges on, you need to sell 30 million. They need to sell 60 million. They need to sell 90 million. When it comes to Valve, they're not really, their business model isn't tethered to hardware that they make. So that is the one difference. So is this surprising to see from Valve? No. Would it be surprising to see these prices if it was PlayStation? Yeah. Yeah, it would, because I'd be like, Sony. But MBG, they told us Steam is consumer friendly, and they attacked Sony for having a $1 increase on PlayStation Plus. Well, that's why when we had that conversation, we had that conversation that hopefully made it clear that, yes, Valve also wants money. Even though they are a privately owned business, they're still a business or privately owned company, but they still want money. And in this case, Valve is telling you with these prices, we're not eating anything. If you're going to buy this, we need to make some kind of, at the very least, we need to break even. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. And they literally can do that, because this is where it's like, Valve is not going to come out here and be like, we want goodwill with our Steam machine. Valve is going to look at Steam and say, we already have our goodwill there. This can just be for those who want it. So it's not surprising. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying, Beast Mode. I mean, we've seen some of that, certainly. We also have Makui Ninja saying, sure, I'll buy a console with no way to play the dang thing. What are we talking about? What are we talking about right now? Well, hold on. My assumption, just so I understand correctly, Makui Ninja. Just so we understand correctly, you can connect pretty much any controller to this thing, right? So, like, if you already have an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, you can connect it to this, right? But yeah, I mean, it does sound funny, doesn't it? Like, it does sound funny. It's like, oh yeah, here's the box. Controller sold separately. That is, I would say that's the big difference, where, like, I don't think PlayStation can come out with a PS6 and be like, no controller, unless they say you can connect a DualSense to it, like a DualSense 1. Or even, whatever. Maybe even like a DualShock 4 or something. So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. If they're telling you can connect any controller to this box, all right, sell it separately. Sell the controller separately. It does sound funny, Makui Ninja. Glassdoor Gamer is saying PlayStation will subsidize with volume sales. I mean, I tend to lean towards yes, Glassdoor Gamer. I tend to lean towards that is what they're going to do. But my concern there is that, like, what Sony has to do is thread a needle where they have to find the threshold. How much can you charge for the PlayStation 6 to where it'll still sell at a mass market level? What is the price tolerance of the market? I can tell you right now, if you look at these Steam machine numbers, it's not that. I think we can all agree it's not that. Let's see. See, it's interesting. The first thing I see here, at least this is the first thing it shows me, somebody says that's not bad, all things considered. PS6 will probably be $1,000 too. I mean, if you're Sony, I feel like you got to look at this and be like, you know, if we come in under 1,000, we're already looking better. God, it's so crazy. Are they trying to use Apple as their competitor or something? Somebody says not including a controller in the base package for $1,050 is a little wild. Had fools predicting it would be $700. Well, yeah, I mean, Xbox seeing that price, now they can price. That's crazy. Now they can price Helix at 1,000 without ridicule. All right, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, there. Oh, it's interesting. Like I said, it's the tip of the spear, man. It's the tip of the spear. But the problem is, I don't know that we can truly look at what was announced here by Valve and use this as some kind of measuring stick for what we can expect from Sony or Microsoft. The only thing this reinforces, though, is what we have been discussing, which is if you're in the business of selling hardware, you are in a tight spot right now. The tightest spot you've ever been in. You're between a rock and a hard place. Absolutely. Steelers with a $5 chat says, I don't care if you can use another controller, but if I'm spending $1,000 plus on a machine, it better come with a damn controller. Dude, they should have partnered with Microsoft on this one, bro. Listen, we're going to ship with a controller. It's going to be an Xbox controller. All right? It's the best we could do for you. Xbox controllers are nice, though. I mean, I like them. But yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. Steelers, I can't disagree with you, bro. Like, there's just something about it. Like, is this Valve's first moment of, like, sold separately? I mean, everybody was, like, harping on Sony with the separate disk drive. The stand is a bit extreme. But, like, you know, people were pointing out, like, Sony's selling the stuff separately. But, I mean, now Valve is like, yeah, we're selling a box without it, you know, without a controller. But, again, they do have that advantage of, like, you can connect anything. But it's just, I think where this makes Valve look a little bad, perhaps, in the eyes of most people, is when you see a box like this, a cube, you know, the Valve cube or the Steam cube or whatever, there's already a kind of precedence that's been set of, like, well, if you're shipping a console, which is what people are viewing this as, they're viewing it more of like a console, like Valve's own console, it's got to come with a controller. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, traditionally, that's the expectation. But I don't know. Valve's just kind of doing their own thing. I mean, how many millions of units do you think this is going to sell? I'll ask the chat. How many millions of units do you think it's going to sell at these prices? Tarnished Gamer with a $5 chat says, technically you can connect almost any controller and any mouse and keyboard. You aren't paying for online either. Over time, it's probably cheaper than a console and sub. You might be right about that. If we were to crunch the numbers, you could be right about that. The thing that's interesting to me about this device, though, generally speaking, right, is like, I feel like Valve looked at the Steam Deck and they decided, they used that as the kind of proof of concept of like, all right, listen, maybe we can continue to develop hardware here that's for a very specific audience. And that's why I was trying to highlight, like, Valve kind of has that advantage where they don't have to, there's no pressure on them. That's the truth. Like, they didn't have to do this at all, but they chose to. And then it just so happens that, like, man, we chose to make our own box, basically, our own cube at the worst possible time. But because there's no pressure, yeah, they can say, like, well, we don't want to lose money on this, and we're completely okay if we just get a couple million sales. But that is something that a lot of PC players. Here's the question I want to ask: what if what you just said is true, that over time this could actually be cheaper? But does that matter to the audience that it's supposed to matter to? Because I feel like if you're somebody who's already on board with Valve, I mean, you are likely, I mean, you're already on PC. You know what I mean? Like, you already have a gaming PC. I really do feel like this Steam machine is going to be for hardcore Steam users that just love the idea of having more hardware from Valve. Because I don't know that, like, if you're a console gamer and you are paying to play online, and, you know, you're kind of you're basically already in that ecosystem of, you're just kind of spending money on the ecosystem, in the ecosystem, and it racks up over time. I don't know that when you look at this device, that's the first thing that pops in your mind is, well, you know, I could save money in the long run. Even though it might be true. Because that's the thing, is what we're looking at here with this Steam machine kind of already exists. You know, I feel like a console player could look at any PC right now and say that same thing of, like, I can connect any controller, any mouse and keyboard, and I could save money in the long run. Well, are you going to PC? Nah, I'm good. You see what I'm saying? So I really do feel like you're going to see, obviously, a lot of intense reactions to this. You're going to see people, some people may be freaking out. I don't know. But my read on this ultimately is Valve's just telling you, this is for the hardcore Steam enthusiast, bro. This is for the person who bought the Steam Deck. This is for the person who already owns a Steam Deck and says, I want more Valve hardware. We know that those people are probably just a couple million. 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 at the high end. And that's fine. Like, that's good. That's from Valve's perspective, that's good. Why not? You know, why not? I just can't help but wonder. The thing that, like, kind of sticks out in my mind here, I can't help but wonder if the component situation was different, and this box, you know, the Steam machine, if it could come in at a more reasonable price at like $700, then how different would things look? You know, then what would the conversation look like? Because then I think we could actually say, oh, okay, Steam might be trying to go after both PlayStation and Xbox here a little bit. But, you know, that's just not where we are, unfortunately. Titus, I will read your direct donation. Let me get this out of the way here. I will read your direct donation. I have a couple of super chats that I missed, though. Hang tight, guys. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, we have I know you wish you were me with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, look at what Drake did. People said he was dead. PS5, no games, all in live service. Then he killed the whole game, top 40 with 3 albums by himself. This could push Sony to make better games. Did you just, are you trying to say PlayStation is like Drake? Oh, man. I have to admit, I was not expecting that. I know you wish you were me. I was not expecting that. I mean, we will see. We will see. Like, basically, I think what you're trying to say here is like, I think basically what you're trying to say is, what if everything we're seeing happening right now around all these other companies and all these other areas of the industry actually isn't going to have an impact on Sony? Sony's just going to do their own thing, their own way, however they decide, and it's going to work just fine. And they're actually going to be in a good, healthy place. I mean, some people might, well, not some people, there will be people who absolutely disagree with that, but it's possible. And I'm going to say it because of this one reason. It's possible that ultimately Sony might just be perfectly fine through all of this, or like, if not perfectly fine, like, it's not going to impact them nearly as much, because this entire generation, I've been witnessing something kind of strange. And maybe we're at that tipping point. I want to make that clear. This could change literally starting next month, going into the end of this year, into the remainder of this year. But this entire generation, I've come across so many opinions and so much, not even just opinions, but just general sentiment that like PlayStation's kind of not done, but they're just not good. And you know, it's kind of going downhill and people are not on board with it anymore. And yet every time we see the actual results, it's like there's a massive disconnect between the internet's opinion collectively and how the market is behaving. And you do have to ask the question, like, will we see that in action potentially going into next generation with the PlayStation 6? I mean, yeah. I mean, you're saying that's Drake. Exactly. Well, it is an interesting, I don't listen to Drake. I'm not even familiar with his music, to be honest. I'm like totally out of, like, it's just not my type of music. But I don't know. It is interesting to think that the PS6 could ultimately just be fine, because it's like all this talk surrounding it. I do think talk is cheap, because it is. I think it's super easy for a consumer right now, like myself and millions of others out there, where I'm enjoying my PS5 Pro. I paid a lot of money for my PS5 Pro. I'm enjoying games on it. It is really easy, I think, for me and millions of others right now to just say, I'm kind of okay with not getting a PS6. Like, I really don't feel like I need one. Let Sony show you the PS6. Let them do their job. Then let's ask that question when we're done. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's just, we see the market. The market's weak a lot of times, dude. The FOMO is real. It is. It's real every time, even at a high price point. But I do agree things are a little bit different this time, though. I do agree that the odds are stacked against them. Certainly. Scuba Tank filled with farts with a $5 super chat says, we can all laugh about this and say DOA, but you know this thing will be sold out on the Steam store for months when it goes live. Probably. But honestly, it's because I don't think Valve's going to mass manufacture this thing. I think they're going to try to satiate the demand and just kind of like exist in that space of, we want to just get this thing in the hands of people who want it, and we don't want anybody to feel like they can't get it. Again, I think they're going to follow the exact model they did with the Steam Deck. That's my assumption. And it worked well for them with the Steam Deck. I remember there was like I don't know if it's still like this, but when the Steam Deck first came out, like, you basically could pre-order it, but I think like you would get like a date of like when it's expected to arrive. So you'd have to wait for it, but you were basically in line to get one. I think they'll do something similar here. Because the last thing they want to do is overproduce these things and just be sitting on them. Because that's, it's just going to be money lost. Tarnished Gamer with a $5 super chat says, it is not a console. in big, giant, bold letters on their site, they make it clear it is a PC. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, if that's what they're saying, then that's what it is. It's interesting because it looks like the form factor of a console. But yeah, I mean, to me, the Steam Deck ultimately to me just seems like another alternative option for anybody who's looking to get in a PC. You know? I say this because when we talk about like Microsoft Helix or Project Helix, I mean, they're kind of doing the opposite. So like Steam is saying this is a PC. It looks like a console. It's a PC. Okay. Project Helix, Microsoft's doing the opposite. We're like, no, it's a console. It'll have other storefronts. It'll run full Windows, but it's a console. And I'm like, so at least with the Steam Deck, you're right, there is no confusion. It's a PC. But it's offering it's coming in a package that I think, generally speaking, would usually only be reserved for consoles. And, you know, for some people, that might be enough to sell them on it. Perhaps. I don't know. I'm not interested in one personally. You know, if I were to at some point upgrade my PC or get a new one, I definitely would not be looking at the Steam Deck. Truthfully. And Titus, let me read your direct donation, buddy. You're saying, do we think the audience eats the price because the whole ecosystem has jumped up? Or does it land badly and sell in a very niche market? Well, let me read this again. Do we think the audience eats the price because the whole ecosystem has jumped up, or does it land badly and sell in a very niche market? I mean, when you put the skull, I feel like I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, Titus. I don't know that I don't envision the audience just eating the price. You're saying like the whole audience. Or like you're assuming like most of the audience. When it comes to PlayStation, man, when we talk about the success of the PS5 generation and the idea that so much of what has happened, it's like, when's it going to happen? When's the drop off going to happen for PlayStation? When's it going to happen? And it just like hasn't happened. But this might be the tipping point. And it's exactly like what you're highlighting, Titus. It's that the prices have changed. You know, there was one price increase for the PlayStation, then there was another. And now, you know, people are looking down the barrel of a reality where, you know, the PS5 is now $200 more than it was when it first launched. And it's like, I mean, I don't know if this could work in some crazy way for the PS6 where it's like now people are too scared. People are like, I need to buy a PS6 right now because if I don't, I'm going to end up paying $200 or $300 more 5 years from now. I mean, that's crazy. I don't think that's going to work, but because the market is always comparative, MBG, right? Well, that's the thing, Titus. Like, I don't know at this point. I mean, you know, that reference that I Know You Wish You Were Me made was with a musician, you know, and it's very different. Very different business models, very different business entirely. I look at these prices from the Steam machine, and the only thing I can really think truthfully in regards to PlayStation, because like that's the thing. It's like, oh, okay, well we're getting this information from Valve and the Steam machine. What could this mean for PlayStation? I don't think it means anything. I think it only confirms something we already knew, which is, oh man, the shit's hitting the fan with the RAM crisis and the memory shortage and all that and component costs. Yeah, it definitely confirms that. I mean, but we had that confirmed with SSDs going up to $3,000 for the PS5. Like what? For me, it really comes down to, and I don't know who's going to go first, but my assumption is it's going to be Microsoft. To me, it comes down to when Microsoft is ready to announce the price of Project Helix. If Project Helix comes in at like $1,000 or $1,200, I at that point will be convinced, okay, the PS5 is going to be $800 or $900. Because I don't see how it couldn't be. Unless Sony is just willing to do something unprecedented, which is we will eat hundreds of dollars, like literally like $400 to $500 per unit sold. But it's like, you can't do that. You literally can't do that. I don't know. But then there's always the handheld. We keep forgetting about the handheld. We also have a super chat from, let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Hold on, guys. Sorry if I'm running a little bit behind. And Titus, thank you for the direct donation, buddy. Where am I at here? I don't know why my chat's like this sometimes. It's like glitched out. Hold up. Steelers with a $5 chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, I personally won't be getting a PlayStation 6 until my favorite Japanese studios start pushing things exclusively on it, or putting things exclusively on it. Interesting. I think that's the first time I've come across that specific stance on the PlayStation 6. I've seen a lot of people saying, I won't consider buying a PS6 till this or that, but this is the first one I'm reading where it's specifically your favorite Japanese studios. I mean, is one of your studio, I have to ask Steelers though, is one of your favorite studios Kojima Productions? Because that's the only Japanese studio, that and Team Asobi. Those are and also Polyphony Digital. So those are 3 Japanese studios. Kojima Productions, Polyphony Digital with Gran Turismo, and that's another game, by the way. When we talked about launch lineup or launch window games, I forgot to mention Gran Turismo 8 is likely going to be a launch window game for the PS6. So Sony might be locked and loaded, bro, for the PS6. Like, more than we think. We might be kind of a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of stuff they might have been kind of getting ready behind the scenes. But that's fair. I mean, people, my whole thing with the PlayStation 6, just to make it clear, I mean, look, obviously I have a much greater incentive because I run a YouTube channel covering PlayStation. I have a greater incentive than 99% of people to be a day one buyer of the PlayStation 6. But separating myself from that, just from a consumer level, my whole idea with the PlayStation 6 is I'm giving Sony the benefit of the doubt. This time next year, when they put on the PlayStation 6 reveal event, they're going to have an hour and a half full-blown showcase, and they're going to bombard me with games that by the time I'm done, I'm like, I don't care if this thing is $800 or $900. I'm buying it day one. That's how, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how bombarded I'm going to be with the games. That's how amazing the show is going to be, where it's like, that's expensive as hell, but I'll be damned if I'm not going to have one, you know? That's my hope. The last thing I would expect is an underwhelming show with underwhelming games where I'm like, how much is this going to be? And that's another thing, by the way, that's very different. Like, when we talk about the Steam machine here, another reason why I think people are like, again, I'm not necessarily reading right now what the internet is saying about the Steam machine prices, but we have to understand that they just came out and they're like, here you go. No event, no showcase. Like, they're not, and that's why I'm saying, like, Valve doesn't care if they sell 1 million or 10 million of these things. They do not care. If the intent was we need to sell tens of millions of these things, Valve would have their own showcase with their own games, hyping this thing to the moon and back. So I think that's another reason why a lot of people are just going to look at it and be like, I'm good, you know? Tarnished Gamer with a $5 chat says, most people imagine PC as this big bulking tower with a GPU the size of a PlayStation in it. That's basically, yeah, that's true. But I've seen small form factors the size of your cat, MBG. Well, it depends which cat you're talking about, Tarnished. If you're talking about that guy back there, Papa, it's the first thing you just described. If you're talking about Clark's small. You show me a really, really powerful PC that's Clark-sized, I'm impressed. My PC is pretty big. My PC is like a normal size. It's a normal PC tower size. But yeah, I always appreciate form factors like that, right? Like, really powerful tech, really powerful hardware, and this really compact box. Like, even though I'm not interested in the Steam machine, I like the way it looks. I'm like, that's cool. I like the idea it's just a small cube. It's subtle. It's not in the way. It could pretty much go anywhere. There is something to be said for that. Is that, for me, a good enough reason to buy it? Personally, no. I am less about aesthetics than I am just about the performance and just the overall function. But I absolutely appreciate aesthetics. Like, one of the things when we talk about consoles is I hope the PlayStation 6 looks better than the PS5. I like the look of the PS5. I always have, but I can't deny that I kind of miss the more sleek, more compact form factor that PlayStation's usually been known for, maybe except for like the PS3. The PS5 and the PS3 are pretty bulky, but I think about like the PS1, especially the PS2 and the PS4 with the parallelogram. By the way, guys, as we continue on here, do me a big favor if you haven't already. Please take a moment, hit that like button. We're sitting at 125 likes. I want to see if we can push to maybe get to 150. It helps the stream more than you know. I see Michael Werniff is here with us. We don't want to upset this man. So for his sake, like the stream. We also have Music Maker Man, a member for 32 months. Thank you for being a member for so long, Music Maker Man. He says, hot take, rental or contract deals like phones will be offered more for the PlayStation 6, Helix, and Steam. Thoughts? I agree. Yeah, I mean, this is something we talked about. These companies hint at new business models. I mean, Sony even mentioned the possibility of new business models. And I think, yeah, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. Whether or not it's going to be taken up the same way as these, as like the way people are with phones, where it's like it's just going to be easily accepted. It could be, though. It could be. And Mega iPod Music, thank you so much for renewing your membership. That actually is the first member of the day. Thank you, Mega iPod. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys, if you want to support the channel directly, like I said, consider becoming a member like Mega iPod here. You can gift memberships. I mean, you guys are supporting with super chats and direct donations. That helps just as much. But I will add that to the goal, Mega iPod, and thank you again for that. I need to make sure. Hold on. I need to make sure I didn't miss a direct donation. I don't think I did. No, we're good on that. All right. Sometimes I get nervous that I missed direct donos because I usually hear it go off, but there definitely are those times where even though I heard it go off, I still end up bypassing it accidentally. But yeah, Music Maker Man, I agree that this is something that they're gonna have to do, whether they want to or not. They're gonna have to partner with like Klarna and Afterpay and all these companies or whatever businesses to try to help give people an opportunity to buy this hardware from them. And Dune, with another $5 chat, says, all I can say about these prices is I can't wait for the AI bubble to pop. I mean, people have been talking about the AI bubble for a long time and waiting for it to pop, and it hasn't. And I'm starting to wonder if it's not going to, or at least it's not going to be in the way that people think. I mean, the whole idea, the only way the AI bubble pops, as far as I understand, is if these mega corporations, all these big businesses that are pushing it everywhere, they all basically collectively give up and decide that this is a dead end. Like no matter how hard we push this, no matter how much we invest in it, it's not going anywhere. But everybody seems to be on the same page to where they're like, no, we're going to force this no matter what. We just got to give it time. But yeah, I mean, you see the price that's being paid. So yeah, it is unfortunate, man. And what's ironic though too is one of the biggest selling points of the PlayStation 6 and Project Helix is going to be exactly that. It's going to be AI and how it's integrated into these machines. Hickzock, a member for 23 months. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, hey, MBG, Steam Machine pricing is no surprise. It's an infinite Steam library of games, and it's awesome. The foreshadowing for PS6 pricing, though. Interesting. Very interesting. I love that energy, Hickzock. Hey, Steam Machine over $1,000 with no controller? Good. That PS6, though. What about Sony, though? I love it. What about Sony though? No, I mean, you're not wrong though, Hicksock. Like, it's impossible, I think, for most people to look at this pricing and not at least ponder the question, like, man, what could this mean for the PlayStation 6? You know, if Valve is coming out here with $1,000 Steam machine with no controller, I mean, you pair that really tarnished. I guess I'm not surprised you're saying, MBG, the reactions around Steam machines pricing, it's a bloodbath on Twitter. Hicksock, you're saying I have a good PC and PS5 Pro, so I'm good, but this is the reality now. Sucks for everyone. I agree. Yeah, it is one of those things where I hope it does get better sooner rather than later. I can't imagine it's going to stay this way permanently. Like, that just, to me, it sounds like an impossibility. But yeah, I mean, we've been talking mostly about the PlayStation 6 throughout this Press X podcast episode, and I mean, there's just no way around it, man. Sony has quite the hurdle in front of them. I think, it depends on who you ask when it comes to the confidence levels, but Superman, you're saying, love your content, brother. I love watching these live streams. Very informative, and you have a great presence on camera and to do what you do. Oh, thank you so much for that, Superman. That's incredibly kind of you, dude. I'm glad you enjoy the content. Really. Yeah, early 90s gamer. We've been talking about that. It's interesting. I didn't know that they were going to drop the pricing of the Steam machine today. We were talking about PlayStation 6 today. They're slandering Gabe Newell. Uh-oh. That's when you know it's bad. That's when you know it's bad. When they're starting to slander Gabe, it might be time to panic. Meanwhile, dude, Hiroki Totoki sitting in his office today like, no. I'm telling you, I don't think Sony, listen, I don't want to say Sony isn't at all concerned with Microsoft and Project Helix and Nintendo and the Switch 2 and maybe even Steam with the Steam or Valve with the Steam machine. They are, but if we're looking at like percentages, is Sony putting 50% of their focus on what the competition is doing? No. Is Sony putting 25% of their focus on what the competition is doing? No, I don't think so. I think, honestly, Sony is probably maxed out at putting about 10 to 15% of their overall focus on what the competition is doing. Because what Sony knows, and this is what all the manufacturers know, it's that we're all kind of screwed. Like, is it really that big of a W if Sony comes out and says, we're undercutting the Steam machine by pricing the PS6 at $900 with a controller? I mean, it is a win technically, but it's like, I don't know about that one, Chief. Like, I don't think that matters at this point. I don't think that matters. Maybe with Project Helix, it could matter more if Project Helix is like $900 without a controller, and Sony comes in and says, we're going to offer a PlayStation 6 with a controller for $800. Yes, it will be good in the sense of, wow, that's better. And, Sony undercut Microsoft, but in the bigger picture, it's like you're still selling an $800 console. You know what I mean? So the problems are, the problems are still there. And I feel like the competition is taking a major backseat, even with Microsoft deciding they're going back to exclusives. Because, I mean, it's why, like, when we look at Microsoft, I mean, I just talked about the games that Sony could announce, that maybe those games, GT7, a new Astrobot, a new Uncharted, Fizzant, all these games, maybe all that put together being exclusive to just the console could be enough to really push people towards PlayStation 6, maybe. But that's why when people look at Microsoft and they're like, okay, we're making Gears and Clockwork and then maybe a few more throughout the years. I don't know that that's going to be comparable at all, you know. I thought at first when Microsoft announced they were going back to exclusivity, it was going to be this major signal of like, okay, the competition's heating up again, but now that the dust has completely settled and we've gotten all the information, it's like, well, that's insane pushing polygons. You're saying IGN is saying that the Steam machine was originally meant to cost $750. Wow. Oh, yeah, that is scary. That's actually scary, man. The Steam machine is somewhere between the Series S and X from what I've read. The world is wild right now, man. $1,000 plus gaming boxes with no controllers, AI boom, on the cusp of UFO disclosure, biolabs being exposed. And yet, if you've been playing video games for an extended period of time, it almost feels like none of this is surprising. I've been playing Metal Gear Solid since I was a kid, so none of this is surprising to me. So I do want to let you guys know there's a major storm we're supposed to be getting. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I have to be aware. So in case I'm trying to figure out what time it's supposed to. I can hear it outside. I'm just trying to keep track of this. So if it starts to roll in, I can stay in the basement. Well, Rich, now you're scaring me. It's not supposed to be a hurricane, right? MBG, the question is, what's the selling point of PlayStation 6? Moore's Law is dead Moore's Law. When I see Moore's Law, I just assume you're talking about Moore's Law is dead, the YouTuber. Moore's Law is screwing graphical progression up. We need AI rendering to bring massive leaps. What is Mark Cerny and AMD? And that's what Mark Cerny and AMD are promising. Well, I mean, that's the one real benefit here, I would say. Sony does have Mark Cerny, and I'm not trying to make Mark Cerny sound like the superhero that's going to save the day, but he's not. I think Mark Cerny isn't one to be underestimated. I would not underestimate him and his team's ability to really find a way to surprise and delight with the PlayStation 6. But it's going to have to, again, it's everything's going to have to come together perfectly. You know, I think that his engineering team is going to have to really hit the nail on the head with meaningful improvements that are going to be just that. They're going to mean something to the masses. But then you're going to have the first party teams really leaning into it and taking full advantage of it and immediately showcasing that without question, where it's like, oh, I see it, you know? I mean, yeah, it's going to be DLSS 5 feature for the PS6, 1 million dislikes incoming. Oh, man. Oh, man. I mean, hopefully Sony saw the reaction. Hopefully Sony saw the reaction to DLSS 5, and if they were working on something like that, they have time to tweak it. They have time to course correct and not go all the way out there like that. MBG, this is where I have an appreciation for PlayStation and Nintendo. They run massive hardware operations so they can actually do R&D and push their supply chain and provide the best prices. No one else, literally no one else in gaming is doing this. I mean, that's the thing, is it's like, this is why I think that Sony and Nintendo, even during times like this, they're still, if I don't want to use the terms, they're still doing well. They're still persisting. And I think it's because of what I've said before, and I think many of you have said too, and we kind of agree with here, is that like, there's always going to be a console market. Like there's going to be a relatively large market of consumers and customers that want that type of experience. The challenge is maintaining, keeping the pricing under control for that experience. Because if the pricing really does start to get too out of hand, then yeah, it risks kind of eroding the base principle of what justifies what Sony and Microsoft are doing, which is we're trying to make consoles so people can get a relatively core gaming experience without having to go all in with something like PC and the different layers of customization, but also complexity that come with that. So I agree. I mean, that's why I want to see Sony, Nintendo, and even Microsoft in the console space do well. All right, maybe the storm. I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying nothing out loud because the moment I say something out loud, I'm going to jinx it. I ain't saying nothing. Hold on one sec, guys. All right. Avowed 2 is their comeback. Yeah, we got some time. We got some time, Rich. Let me see where we're at time wise. Oh wow, okay. We've been streaming for over 2 hours. I didn't realize we were streaming for that long. We're gonna continue the conversation. We still have some topics to discuss here. There's something I do want to talk about with you guys, and I think it will kind of naturally continue the conversation about PlayStation, their next gen console, the industry as a whole, what PlayStation is doing differently, what their focus is. But before we do that, guys, like I said, continue to hit that like button. Let me see where we're at. We are at 141 likes. So thank you for that. We're 9 away. Let's see if we can get to 150. Like I said, if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a member, consider gifting members. Appreciate all the super chats and the direct donos. But there's something else here that I need to go over with you guys. So this might be even more important to a lot of you than what we were just talking about. We've been so focused on the hardware side of things, on the not just the business side, but whether or not Sony's going to be able to maintain their hardware platform. There's actually something they came out and said recently to their investors that I honestly think, I don't want to overemphasize it, but it's important in my opinion to not let this go under the radar, because one of the things that we're all, I think, very curious about is what's going to be different for PlayStation going into next generation compared to what we saw happen this generation, because we're pretty much at the end. We still have some time left, but generally speaking, I feel like we have a pretty broad overview of what happened this gen, right? And where it stands. Well, we have a report here from Push Square, and they say here, with titles like God of War Lao Fei, Marvel's Wolverine, and Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet on the horizon, the future looks bright for first-party single-player games from Sony. And while it's not abandoning investment into live service completely, it does feel like the platform holder is once again willing to acknowledge what it's best at. As part of their huge financial document, they said to investors, quote, "Regarding Sony's first-party game software, Sony aims to create a stable base of revenue through consistent annual releases of single-player games, which have traditionally been its core strength, while also building a portfolio of live service games," end quote. While we don't think the firm ever strayed massively from this, it did feel for a period like it was trying to shove live service down our throats. Now it seems more like it's going to deliver those big single-player hits it's known for, while sprinkling some multiplayer games on the side occasionally. I suppose some fans may not be happy to hear it's targeting one big single-player game per year, but I don't think this rules out multiple titles releasing. It just wants to have at least one major blockbuster on a yearly basis. I'd expect, for example, next year we'll get both God of War Lao Fei and Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, to whereas this year we had Saros and Marvel's Wolverine. The article writer here says, I may be in the minority, but I don't want Sony to stop experimenting with multiplayer games. I'm personally really excited about the upcoming Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, for example. I think it's just a matter of the approach. It needs to get the balance right and find suitable partners. Teaming up with Arc System Works for the fighter is a match made in heaven, for example, and I doubt anyone's going to complain about that. Hopefully the company's beginning to realize that it needs a good mix of different things. I'm a little bit more optimistic on that it's on the right path now again after a lull in the middle of the generation. And so what I wanted to kind of highlight here is when we look over this quote, we have to understand that these quotes that are coming from this financial document, these are written very specifically for investors. The vast majority of people are not paying attention to, to anything that Sony's saying here. And so when you keep that in mind, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but I want to read it one more time. They say, regarding Sony's first-party software, Sony aims to create a stable base of revenue through consistent annual releases of single-player games, which have traditionally been its core strength. And then just like at the very end, they just tack on with a small sentence, while also building a portfolio of live service games. I feel like you can begin to sense a complete energy shift from PlayStation going into next generation. And I feel like this energy shift kind of comes in the form of, they're not going to say it this way, but it's like, listen, we did what the investors wanted. Like we tried, we went all in with live service too much. Like we went crazy, not just with live service, but we also went crazy with trying to expand PlayStation beyond the console. These are things that investors were pressuring Sony to do. And, if you're wondering why Sony made so many mistakes in these areas this generation, that's why, because they were under pressure to do so. And they kind of caved into that pressure and said, yeah, I guess we should do that. But, some hard lessons were learned. And so this is where it's like when you listen closely to what they're telling investors, it's pretty much, listen, we're going back to leaning on our annual single player games because that's what has worked for us. That's what has gotten us to where we are. But they're also being wise, where there have been people who, they've basically said that Sony should be completely done with live service games. They should walk away completely from live service. And I understand why people would say that. After seeing everything that's happened, I can't blame them. But I think if we're being realistic about it, the most important thing to understand is Sony does have successful live service games. They have that portfolio. It's just a matter of how much denser does that portfolio really need to be for you, Sony? We have games like Gran Turismo 7, MLB The Show, Helldivers 2. I don't know if I can count Marathon, but there are these games. They're going to have Marvel Tokon. I think that'll do well enough. One live service game a gen. I don't think they'll go that slim. Tyler Daniel TD with a $5 chat says, hey, MBG, do you think it's too soon to release the PlayStation 6? If you're asking me for holiday 2027, like if you're saying right now, yeah, right now, literally right now, it's too soon. If we're talking about a holiday 2027 release, I don't think it's too soon. I think it's just unfortunate timing. I think it is a lot of people feeling burned by the pricing of things right now. That's going to make it feel like we don't need this, and it makes it feel too soon. I also think it's the fact that people still look back on this generation, and it's kind of what we're talking about here. They look back on this generation and they say, well, we could have had more single player games, like significantly more, if Sony didn't go so crazy with the live service shenanigans. And I think those two things combined going into the PlayStation 6 are what create this intense feeling for people of it's too soon. Some people even say that it feels like the generation didn't even start, but it's even worse when you consider the fact that, yeah, most games were cross-gen in the beginning. Yeah, that's true too, Gavin. You can't forget the Bungie acquisition. So yeah, I think, do I think it's literally too soon? No. Do I think that there's a lot of reasons surrounding the PlayStation 6 to create that feeling for people? Yes. Yes, I do. Tarnished with a super chat says, off topic, did you look into Thiat acid? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, saying we care about you. I did look into it. Yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical, Tarnished, only because it has some, like some of the it's one of these things where it does have, everything has side effects, but I might try it at some point. There's something else I'm going to try. It's not nearly as intense. It has the same type of, the main ingredient in it, though. I was looking at this supplement. It's also for nerves and nerve pain. Alpha lipoic acid, something along those lines. That's the main ingredient that was in what you were telling me. I found another supplement it's like slightly lower dose. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna see if it helps. And we have Meow coming in. Okay, Meow coming in, dropping 5 member gifts for you guys. I guess thank you, Meow. It was a little bit surprising because I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna get 1 member for the day. That's fine. Meow says we're gonna get 5 more. Meow, thank you so much for dropping 5 member gifts for the community, bringing us up to 6. Hold on.
This is an incredibly exciting time for PlayStation.
Meow, you get a Herman. Meow's like, I am gonna take those back. Why would you give me a Herman? Thank you for the 5 gifts. See if we can. We'll see. We have time. We can see if we can hit that goal today. We need to have a bunker storm party. Rich, why are you talking like that, bro? Like, what are you trying to tell me right now? It's not going to be that bad. It's just going to be a regular thunderstorm. Bro's trying to give me anxiety. I don't need anxiety over the storm. It's fine. It's all going to be fine. Hold on though. Question, MBG, what's wrong with selling a 20-hour game to share a backstory of an IP you want to introduce as live service game that will allow you to gauge interest and build interest? What's wrong with selling a 20-hour game? Share a backstory of an IP you want to introduce as a live service. I mean, is there a specific game you're referring to here? Or is this just like a kind of model idea that you're proposing? Where like we start with a 20-hour single-player game, but then the follow-up to that is actually a live service game. So it'd be like the equivalent of Sony being like, it's an interesting model idea. I think it has a very high chance of backfiring, unfortunately. But basically, what you're highlighting would be the equivalent of, imagine the first time we ever see Concord revealed. It's a 20-hour single-player experience, introducing the world, the characters, the lore, all this stuff, the gameplay. And then after that, they announce, oh, okay. You guys see that? Shit. All right, guys, if you need to listen, we're going to have, oh, man. Get your donations in right now. Get your donations in right now. Right now, because the lights are flickering. Okay? Get them in now. Now I'm just pushing hardcore for super chats, member gifts, the whole 9 yards, because it seems like this stream could end at any moment. Forget the rest of the topics. Oh, man. See how it happens? This is what happens. I wake up today, I'm like, today's going to be a good day. I'm feeling more positive. I'm feeling better. It's like, But hey, Steelers comes in. Steelers, thank you so much, bro. He's like, oh, man. MBG's he's about to go down. I'm going to drop 5 member gifts for him. He says all aboard the member train. Steelers takes us to 11. Thank you so much for that, man. Wow, my whole thing's glitching out here now. What the fuck is going on? All right, there we go. Steelers, thank you so much for 5 more member gifts, bro. Appreciate all the support you guys have been showing today. My goal today is to go to 3 to 3.5 hours. But I don't know, man. I just saw those lights flicker, and I'm like, okay. I don't know. If you don't survive the summer storm of 2026, we love you, man. I hate you, Rich. No, Rich would come save me. He's like, my man, MBG's out there. I gotta go save him. Show up in like a raft or some shit. Oh, man. Shadowlink, you're saying that bunker party's not sounding so bad now, huh? I can't see outside right now, by the way. Yeah, so I'm totally in the dark. I'm going to ask Mrs. MBG to send me a picture. See how bad it looks. Send me a picture from outside. Don't go outside, Mrs. MBG. Just send me a picture. Digital Foundry criticizes Steam Machine heavily due to price. Interesting. That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good at all. Go outside and touch grass. Steelers is like, I just want you to be able to fix your roof. Are you now you're trying to predict something's going to happen to my roof? I hope not. That's the last thing I need, dude. Oh my God. Yeah, next stream we're going to have a new roof fund, new roof goal. That's just what I need. See, now you got Hellbound dropping 5 gifts because now he's like, MBG's probably going to need a new roof. Hellbound 1981, another legend. He comes in and goes crazy. He drops 5 more gifts for you guys, bringing us up to 16 on the day. Hellbound, thank you so much for that, man. I'm going to assume you just dropped those gifts out of the kindness of your heart, not because you're assuming my roof's going to blow up or some shit or get ripped off. That doesn't look too bad outside. That doesn't look too bad. I was expecting it to look much worse. Now that I said that, though. All right. Where were we? What was the topic we were talking about? I feel like I derailed myself. I don't blame myself. I blame the flickering of the lights. Very distracting for me. What was the first Resident Evil game I ever played? The first Resident Evil I ever played was Resident Evil 2. I think it was on the PlayStation 1. I did eventually play RE1, though. MBG Hideo Kojima just shared a new in-game screenshot of OD, the Xbox game. Interesting. Thanks, Gaming Survivor. I appreciate that. I'll try not to. Hellbound literally says it's for the new roof. Why? I still appreciate it, bro. Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's very nice to know you care. It means a lot. Rich is literally asking me about my insurance right now. All right, back to the gaming discussion. Single player games, guys. This is what I was trying to say. I was I just stop. There's no way you guys are not trying to turn this into a thing where like MBG's he's just gone. You know, you guys you make jokes. Watch something actually happen now. If I ain't here tomorrow, they're gonna be like, "Oh my God, we were just kidding, bro." I mean, figuratively literal with a $5 chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, according to Schreier, COVID played a bigger part in this gen feeling sparser than people realize. It was compounded by the LS push, but COVID screwed it. He's probably not wrong. I mean, when you look back at the pandemic and how that affected, by LS, he means live service, I believe. When you look back at everything, I mean, here's the thing. I think one of the reasons why COVID messed things up worse than we realize, and I know a lot of you are aware of this, but some people are not. It's because COVID created a massive artificial inflation for all of these companies, for all entertainment companies, especially gaming. I mean, gaming saw a boom like we've never seen before because of everybody having to be indoors. So everybody's basically forced to game, you know? And people were picking up. I mean, if you remember in 2020, Sony was giving away stuff like every month for free. And so all these gaming companies saw this massive, massive spike, and everybody's living large and feeling good. Things are going better than ever. But, it's like almost nobody really thought about the come down of like, well, assuming it doesn't stay this way forever, assuming eventually, whether it's a year from now or 4 years from now, things go back to normal, this is all there's gonna be a flip side to this that people are not considering. And it seems like, yeah, there there were some companies that were more prepared than others, but everybody definitely felt the effect of it. Certainly. So I would say Jason Schreier's not wrong there. COVID did mess up this entire gen. I can't help but wonder what the PS5 would look like sales wise if there was never a shortage. Because if there's one thing that I remember very, very clearly at the beginning of this generation was people literally could not buy PlayStations. And I feel like, I don't know, I get the feeling that a lot of people end up just giving up and deciding we're just going to stay on PS4 or move to PC or whatever. But they could not buy PlayStations. I mean, maybe at the end of the day, it wouldn't have made as much of a difference as I assume. But, guys, you remember MBG, good guy. Now all we have is his unofficial Discord server and a running AI joke version who answers every question like he's MBG. Oh, man. Thanks, Titus. You're mapping it out perfectly. This is how it's going to go down. I'm going to just not stream tomorrow just to spite you guys. I'll really just be spiting myself, but I'll make you guys sweat. It's like I go live. I'm literally outside storm chasing. Well, I've changed my channel completely now, guys. This is the rebrand. Got my PS5 in June or July of 21. I was only able to get it because I got an email directly from Sony. Yeah, I mean, you can't help but wonder how differently things would have played out if the tens of millions of people who wanted one were just able to get one. Again, maybe it would have evened out and we would be in the exact same position that we're in now, but I don't know, man. It was really crazy to see the hype that I saw and what seemed to be the demand for the PlayStation 5 when it first launched was something I'd never seen before. I mean, I was in shock. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. It's awesome. But, I remember that there was this YouTuber. I don't know if he still does it or not. I forget his name. It was just one guy. But there was this YouTuber that made a whole channel dedicated to basically trying to help people get PS5s. Rich, stop. Stop stressing me. And I remember like his channel became so big just trying to help people get PlayStation 5s. This is how bad it was that I think he was even featured on like news channels or something over it. I'm like, this is crazy. And he would have like thousands and thousands of people watching his streams of just literally trying to secure PS5s. And I look at that and I'm like, there's no way that didn't have some kind of, the shortage that is, there's no way it didn't have some kind of massive negative effect at the end of the day on this entire generation. But that's not an excuse, though. I mean, there's no denying that Sony messed things up. No, the streamer, I forget the guy's name. I don't think he's like a really big famous streamer. But he basically like his channel, I think, temporarily blew up, or maybe it's still big. I'm not sure. Literally because of the PS5 shortage. Where like I remember I was like, I would come across his channel. I'm like, man, he's getting more views and more engagement talking about how to secure a PS5 than I am talking about the games that are coming to PS5 and the features and stuff. I'm like, that it just kind of highlighted, like, look at that, man. More people are just interested in trying to figure out how do I get my hands on one of these things. Yeah, I forget talking about Jake. Yeah, that's maybe that Jake something. That name rings a bell. I think you're right. But it's so crazy to me, like that's just a part of the history of this generation of console, where it's like truly bizarre things going on. Tarnish, you're saying, or wait, hold on, I missed. Figuratively literal, you're saying COVID massively extended dev times for games too. That's true as well. Yeah, because COVID, one of the things it did was basically push everybody to work from home. And then there was this like really awkward transition where developers had to suddenly scramble to figure out how they're going to efficiently work from home. And then once they got used to that, everything started to go back to normal. Like, okay, you're coming back to the office now. And then that transition had to happen. So things would just go back to normal. So yeah, there's no denying that that's a reality as well. And in the middle of all that, you get Sony still just trying to run the platform as best they can. Jake Randall. There you go. Thank you, Scorpion. Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, I don't know if he still does that or not, but I mean, I remember that was like going on for years. 8 billion people on the planet. How big is gaming really when we think about it? 90 million bought a PS5. I mean, that's kind of the thing though, right? Like, this is why these companies have this massive ambition of like, we want gaming to proliferate. We want it to expand. We want it to grow. We want to grow the market. And I've always had this kind of negative outlook towards that. And it's not just for the sake of being negative, but it's because I view it as like, yeah, you want to get more customers. You want to grow the market. I totally get all that. All that I would say is even necessary. But this idea, this notion of like there's tens of millions of potential customers that you're not speaking to. You have to find a way to get their attention and speak to them. I've just always felt that most of the ways, if not almost all of the ways, that these companies would try to reach these new potential customers, it's like, I'm not saying don't do anything, but there's a reason they're not paying attention. Now, in some instances, it could simply be because they're just unaware. That's where marketing comes in. That's where trying to expand into different media like movies and TV comes in. But but I feel like this whole notion of like we need to take our games. It really, the thing that continues, there's two things that pop into my mind: cloud gaming and mobile gaming. The reason why I don't think cloud gaming is going to work anytime soon is because I feel like a fundamental problem, perhaps, is like, imagine Sony, right? They're like, okay, how do we get more people interested in God of War, Horizon, and The Last of Us? Well, one way you can do that is you can really try to go all in with cloud gaming and convince people who are not going to buy a console, who are not going to buy any type of hardware, who are not playing on PC, convince them they're just watching TV, right? They're just watching shows on their TV or movies on their TV. Convince them to somehow partake in cloud gaming with PlayStation. I don't know why, but there's just like this part of me that feels like that's not going to happen. Because I just think again, I don't want to get like overly philosophical about it, but it's like I just think there's a disconnect here. Like a literal physical disconnect of like, okay, why is this person not interested in playing The Last of Us or playing God of War? We'll just stick with The Last of Us. Well, reason number one is probably just fundamentally whatever they're seeing is not grabbing them. Okay, well, let's assume it does grab them and they're like, wow, that looks really cool. What could be the secondary thing stopping them? The cost, the barrier to entry, the cost to buy the console to access this. And they say, oh, that's cool, but not cool enough to spend hundreds of dollars. But I think the third potential, reason, maybe that you could bump this up to number one. It's, oh, I have to pick up a controller and play. Yeah. Oh, I have to play the game. I have to interact with this medium. Yes. That is what it is. You can't consume this, but this is why. Like, well, that actually, let me take a step back. You can consume video games that way by watching them. And this is where I feel like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Nintendo seems to find success by they try to Nintendo seems to successfully win people over by coming off very lighthearted and accessible. Like anybody can pick up and play a lot of what we're doing here. Sony doesn't really have that advantage. And neither does Microsoft, for that matter. Kane Z7 with a super chat says, "Hi MBG in chat. Sorry if you already talked about it, but what's your opinion on Steam Machine's price? 1,000 USD, 512 gigabytes without a controller." Just to recap, not surprising based off of everything we've been hearing leading up to the announcement of the price of this machine. To me, I don't think it's necessarily worth it. I can't make that determination for others, but my ultimate opinion here is I think the Steam Machine is going to appeal and sell to a really hardcore niche enthusiast group of Steam players that also have the Steam Machine, or the Steam Deck, and they're going to want to add the Steam Machine to that. That's my opinion on it. I don't think it's going to be a competitor of any kind to PlayStation or Nintendo. If it is going to be a competitor of any kind, it might be closer to something like what Microsoft is doing with Project Helix. Sparky Nuts, you're saying you think there's a real chance the PS6 is 1,000? We will see. If Sony, listen, I'm just saying, if Sony launches $1,000 PS6, it's like, what's the point? I'll tell you this right now. Remember, I'm telling you this. Sony would be better served to literally cancel whatever version of the PS6, whatever the PS6 is going to be that they're developing right now. If your only option is to sell it at $1,000, cancel it. Extend this gen for 5 years. Rework completely what the PS6 is going to be. Because if you don't, it is over. Like, I'm telling, if Sony launches $1,000 PS6, it is over. Okay, at least in the short term. Could there be some kind of massive turnaround where they come out and they're like, it's the year 2030, and we're announcing that hey, $500 now. Sure. Mrs. MBG says our town on Facebook is saying a lot of people lost power from the wind. Stream may be cut. Hold on one second. I'm going to do something real quick. Yeah. Let's see. We have MVP Moss with a $5 chat saying, "That's true. Sony single player games can be a bit intimidating for a first time user. I've seen it firsthand. I hope they do more games like Astro." And yeah, I think that's why Sony cares so much about Astro, because they see the benefit. Like they kind of are starting to see, like, oh, so this is why it works for Nintendo, you know? And we're going to talk about Astrobot tomorrow. I definitely have some stuff I want to talk about there. Remember when the PS1 launched that lineup? Feels so old. Shadowlink with the $2 super chat says, "I'm still by the beach at 1K Ninja, LMAO." So Shadowlink, you're telling me you're at the beach right now, or you're near the beach? Rich, stop. You don't have to tell me every time there's a storm blip, bro. Stressing me out. Got Rich the Storm Watcher, apparently, like, man, come on. Why? That's why yellow paint and hand holding is so common in Sony games. Well, I mean, to be fair, there is a reason that they kind of do, not just Sony, but these AAA game devs, they're putting so much money into this stuff. They need it to have a wider appeal ultimately. But I'm telling you, man, I just genuinely feel that, well, Sony, if let me take a step back. Oh, I misread that. You're saying I'm still going to buy the PS6 if it's $1,000. That's what I'm saying. What? Oh, I'm an idiot. Shadowlink's like this guy, bro. Yeah. Let me try this again. I'm gonna still buy that beach at 1K. Ninja LMAO. Okay. I'm reading it correctly now. I took what you said literally. I'm like, this man is telling me he's at the beach. He's saying something at 1K. I don't know what I'm just like, you're at the beach? Anyway, bro, just can't talk to me normal, Got to stress me out. I know you guys get off on this. Trying to platinum Arkham City. That one's kind of difficult, isn't it? Or like it's really, really tedious. All right. What was I going to say? I had some high level thought that I wanted to communicate to you guys. Now that I've said that out loud, somebody's going to come in and say something nonsensical to completely completely derail me again. But I think the problem that specifically PlayStation is facing right now, we could say maybe Microsoft is facing another problem, but this is truly, I think, Sony's biggest issue. It's that I look at it as there's three sectors. There's like three groups of people, right? Group number one is us. It is the more core gamer that grew up with either PlayStation consoles or just console gaming in general. And, you could say from like the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s to where we are now. I think that group is what is sustaining the console market as we know it. I think that group is heavily sustaining PlayStation specifically. The second group is, an older generation, an even older generation that doesn't really game, but I think Sony has tried to appeal potentially to some of that generation through things like The Last of Us HBO and them trying to make movies and TV shows. And, these are people that probably are watching stuff. They're using their smart TVs and whatnot, but they're not familiar with PlayStation and not familiar with gaming. But then I think there's the younger generation. And so I think like on that one extreme end with the older generation, I don't think Sony's going to be able to successfully convert those people into customers. And there's also the morbid fact that they're older, they're going to die off, and if you're talking about sustaining your business with a really core customer group for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you're looking at the opposite end of that spectrum, which is the younger generation. And the younger generation, there's enough evidence out there and enough data to tell us that the younger generation doesn't really care about the console that much. And their idea of what a core gaming experience is very different from us. And that idea really is built around things like Fortnite, things like Roblox, things like these massively successful live service games that become the platforms in and of themselves. If games like this were created back when the console model was much more ubiquitous, or if not ubiquitous, just more of the standard, there's a reality where like you could have potentially seen Roblox, the company, make their own console, and that is the platform. Roblox has their own console, and it is the platform. The problem here is how Sony is going to effectively maintain the core customers that they have now, which again I think are like us, the people who grew up with consoles and still have, we hold it in very high regard, and we have a certain traditional way that we expect things to be. How are they going to maintain that? And when I say maintain, I mean really work hard to, like, we can't lose these guys. These are our, these are the people keeping our business sustainable. But we have this whole new generation that doesn't give a flying F about The Last of Us, about God of War, about Horizon. And that's why it's so difficult and painful to watch Guerrilla Games be like, okay, well, we can do that. We're going to make Horizon Hunter's Gathering. And I'm like, there's that, like, this is the most data-driven game I've seen from a first-party PlayStation studio, where it's like, so you're taking, like you can almost see the logic. It does line up where it's like, we're going to take one of our best-selling newer franchises for PlayStation, and then we're going to make potentially, I don't know if they confirmed it or not, but potentially a free-to-play Horizon game. It's going to look very similar to Fortnite, and it's going to play kind of like Monster Hunter, whatever. And I'm like, I understand like where that comes from, because that's in the minds of Guerrilla Games and in the minds of the executives at Sony PlayStation that greenlit that game. They're like, this is what we can do to try to appeal to that younger audience. And I'm like, the most difficult thing to have to convey to Sony that they're probably not hearing, or if they are, it's taking a while for them to get the message, is like, you're too late. And that's the scary part. I'm not trying to be, there's no way somebody said, Matt Booty, get out of MBG's body. What are you talking about, bro? Sorry, like, where my chat comes in and just throws me off, bro. Just want to have a normal conversation with my audience, man. I appreciate that troll, though. That's a good troll. I like that. MBG, they do care about Kratos and Aloy in The Last of Us, but only if it's a Fortnite skin. Even then, how much do they really care? Matt Booty possession and Storm got MBG nervous. That was the flickering of the lights. Matt Booty possessed me from afar. I think Xbox is great. I don't even know why people are hating on them. Did you see that showcase? Make sure you buy Halo on PlayStation 5, guys. Anyway. Is that how Matt Booty sounds? I don't know how he sounds. But yeah, this is the big problem that PlayStation faces right now, where when I don't mean to be negative when I say this, but I'm trying to be realistic, where it's like, Sony, you missed the boat. Unfortunately. I don't think, like, I don't want to tell them to give up completely, but I just don't see how they're going to be able to make a platform game that reaches the upper echelon of games like Fortnite, of games like Roblox, of games like GTA Online, of games like Minecraft, where it's like, if you think about it, that's the one thing Sony just like doesn't have. And you can start to understand why they got so desperate this generation. I mean, truly desperate to have that, where they even bought Bungie, thinking that was that's it. We bought Bungie, we got it. No, you don't. Unfortunately, Bungie doesn't even have that either. Who would have thought? So, this is a problem Sony still has to contend with going forward. Right now, though, I don't think they can prioritize it, because like I said, Sony has to prioritize maintaining their core audience, figuring out how they're going to sustain the business model that they need to work for them. Because, yeah, they don't have a mega hit. I mean, Helldivers 2 is a big hit live service game, sure. It's not a platform game. And it's nowhere near the levels of something like Fortnite or Roblox or GTA Online. Same with GT7, MLB The Show. These games bring in recurring revenue and they do work for Sony, but they're not anywhere near that level. And so this is truly the challenge that Sony has in front of them at a high business level when it comes to trying to map out the next decade of what PlayStation looks like. As much as, look, I want them to continue to double, triple, quadruple down on their single player games. I would very much love Sony to not care about this stuff. But I understand that from a business level, maybe that doesn't make any sense. I understand why they feel nervous that if we allow our platform that is PlayStation to continue to grow, but while it's growing, it's completely at the mercy of these other games that we have no say over, that we have no control over, and we basically don't really have a revenue stream in, at least one of true significance. Yeah, the revenue stream is significant. It's the opposite. It is very significant, the revenue stream they get from these games that they don't own, but just the vulnerability of Call of Duty was like the shocking wake up call for them of like, oh my God, what are we going to do if the Call of Duty revenue is stripped from us? Yeah, what are you going to do? It was kind of a wake up call. Like, you become so reliant on these big third party games and the 30% rips you get from them. Yeah, looking back at the Minecraft acquisition, I agree that was kind of a crazy that's kind of crazy get for Microsoft, man. For the price they paid for it, $2 billion. It was a $2.5 billion, I think. So I don't know that I have a solution per se to offer Sony. The best thing I would say, I feel like the only thing I could say is like, take it slow. Even though you are in a vulnerable state, it doesn't mean that anything bad's going to happen. I feel like if Sony continues to stick by their core principles of their core tenets, if you will, of what got them to where they are now, they'll likely be okay. But they have to just find a better balance overall of like, I would say pour 60 to 70%, maybe even up to 75% of your energy, your resources, your time, and your money into maintaining what you currently have. 25%, maybe even reduce it down to 20, 15% when you have to. Put that, invest into these other things, into these more experimental things, and into these areas where you need to try to find you need to find a way to appeal to the younger audience. Or you need to try to find a way to get that audience to grow into what you're doing. Because, like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, let me see how I can word this. Do we think that Roblox kids are going to be playing Roblox forever? Or do we think they're going to grow out of that and graduate to something else? If there was like a more mature adult version of Roblox, guess what? Sony missed the boat on that too, because that's about to be GTA Online too. And that's where it's like, maybe the next best thing Sony can think is when people decide they want to move on from Fortnite, what do they want to move on to? I don't know. It's a really tough one, man. I don't know how Sony might have no choice but to just settle for the fact that you have all of these kids, this younger generation, you have them on your platform, not all of them, of course, but a large chunk of them. Maybe that has to just be good enough. Maybe the 30% rips just have to be good enough. But yeah, there's just no denying that it'll be that lingering kind of question mark of when is it not going to be good enough? Like, what do we do if X, Y, or Z goes away? How do we fortify ourselves? How much of the percentage Sony makes from the first party MBG, isn't it lower than most other things? Nintendo fans will pretty much still play Nintendo. Average age is over 35. Yeah, I don't know the percentages off the top of my head, Cheese, but I know that Actually, if I recall, I think Sony confirmed that literally over 50%, I think it was 51 or 52% of all of PlayStation's revenue comes from live service games that are not from them, like from their partners. And that's crazy. That's good. Like, it's good. It's not a bad thing. Like, they're like saying this is how we make our money. But you can begin to see how, like, so half of your platform success has nothing to do with you. Correct. You can begin to see how they're like, how do we increase that percentage? And you could start to see where it's like, oh, yeah, we should do live service. That'll increase it. It's like, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Jean says, my son prefers Roblox to any other games. Fact. Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's with a lot of kids today. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's interesting. If you try to remember when you were a kid and you first engaged with games, assuming you were like a kid when, you know, you were introduced to games. For us, we had no choice. Like, we didn't have Roblox, right? Like, it's easy for us to dismiss Roblox potentially. But if you imagine you're a kid, like go back to when you were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and you boot up your whatever device, maybe it's an iPad, maybe it could be a tablet, but assuming it's even still a console, and there's just this game on there where there's millions of games. Every day you log in, there's new games for you to play. Or you have a rotation of 5, 6, 7, 8 different games within that application. This is why I'm saying, like, what Sony needs to focus on, truthfully, if they're going to spend money in R&D, this is one of those things where I don't know that you can just pour money into it and create the solution. But what Sony needs is a platform game, man. Truthfully, that's what they need. And man, I don't know how they would do it. This is why I always refer to Dreams. I'm like, literally, the studio you have that was this close to, they were on the cusp. They were on the precipice of actually creating a platform game, but nobody knew what to do with it. Nobody knew how to market it. Nobody knew how to present it. Nobody knew how to, translate what they created into, okay, now start creating. I mean, there's a chance that if Sony handled Dreams right, Dreams would be on PC right now. It'd be on Xbox right now. It'd be everywhere right now. And it would have a very healthy audience. And you would maybe see kids possibly gravitating towards Dreams on top of Roblox. Like, Dreams could be a possible alternative. I don't know. I feel like they were on to something, but nobody really knew what to do there. Dreams can't work. Sony has rules against games like that. That's why Roblox is an app. What are the rules that they have against games like that? I mean, they let them make it, Oh, you mean because like they're like possible copyright and stuff? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I tried to look into the inner workings of copyright with like Roblox and stuff, but it seems very messy. I'm like, I don't even know. But here's the thing, though. If I'm not mistaken, Roblox hasn't made any money, right? Yeah, like Roblox, even though Roblox is a situation, I think, where they have the numbers. It's like a Netflix type situation. They have the numbers, but they don't have the profits because the model maybe is kind of broken. Let me look that up real quick. Hold on. Is Roblox profitable? Roblox is a highly popular platform, but it is not profitable under standard accounting metrics and has consistently reported net losses since its inception. However, the company generates robust positive free cash flow. Operating losses despite bringing in billions in revenue, Roblox's operating expenses, R&D, infrastructure, and developer payouts consistently outpace its income. The company routinely posts quarterly net losses in the hundreds of millions. Because users purchase Robux, which I guess it's the microtransactions up front, and the company's capital expenditures are lower than their cash receipts, They remain highly free cash flow positive. The platform intentionally reinvests the majority of its incoming cash, or reinvests, sorry, the majority of its incoming cash into research and development, expanding into a new age demographics and artificial intelligence, favoring long-term growth over current profitability. Interesting. Okay, hold on though. Hold on. See, this changes everything. So in other words, they're betting on this model, the whatever the Roblox model is. They're betting on that model eventually becoming profitable. So Roblox is kind of like the Netflix of gaming. Not Game Pass, Roblox. Who would have thought? Yeah, you can okay, maybe it begins to come a little bit more clear why Sony isn't maybe why they're pumping the brakes on this, cuz knowing that Roblox is not profitable, it's this kind of like obsessive chase for massive numbers, having so many players that it's just, it sounds like to me, if Roblox ever does become profitable, it's going to be massively profitable, which is why it might be worth continuing. They're continuing to push, but they're possibly wrong because, as I always say, young people don't have money. Yeah. Well, that's the thing they're talking. It's so interesting. Like, I didn't expect to read one of the things is they're trying to push into new age demographics. So it's like, yeah, Roblox seems to appeal mostly to a younger audience. Are they growing into it? Are they, as they're getting older, are they departing it? If they're departing it, where are they going? Right now, it's very strange, man. Listen, if it were me, if I had final say over like what PlayStation would do, and I'm not saying I'd be right. I'm not saying I wouldn't take the company under or accidentally kill PlayStation in the long run. But I would hold strong to I would tether my fundamental belief in, I think people just want really great games, man. Like like individual games that stand on their own. They're not created in another game on a platform. I don't know. I'm playing Dark Souls again right now. I don't know why. I just had this urge. I'm like, I'm feeling kind of down. I'm not feeling great these days. I want to go back to play. Dark Souls will make me feel better. And I just decided, all right, I'm going to play Dark Souls Remastered. And I'm playing this game, man. And I'm like, this is it. This is it. Like right here, like I don't know. I'm just playing it. I'm like, this is it. This needs to never change. But here's the point here. I'm not just playing Dark Souls. I'm also playing Pragmata. So last night, I played Pragmata for an hour and a half. After that, and I progressed through a level, did a boss battle, got a bunch of cutscenes, made progress. After that, I boot up Dark Souls. I played Dark Souls for an hour and a half. Two completely different games. Two games so distinct. So, I mean, truly, like they have aspects then where it's like that make them so unique. One is story-based, very story-driven, cutscenes, puzzle-based shooter gameplay. The other is, I mean, we all know what Dark Souls is. The gameplay is just so the world building. There's say less, right, and just take it all in. And I'm like, it's just this, man. Like, the industry has to be able to be comfortable in a place of slow growth, in my opinion, because the more you try to force it, the worse I think it might get, or the more difficult you might make it. Why not stream them? I don't know. I've talked to you guys before. Like, I've done plenty of gameplay streams before. I never really feel comfortable. It's not the fault of you guys. It's just the nature of, like, I can't seem to focus. I can't seem to relax the same way I would if I was just playing alone. Basically, you'd have to secretly film me, or you have to secretly stream me. then I'd be fine. Uh-oh. Hopefully Mrs. MBG wasn't listening to that, because she's gonna set up a secret camera, like a hidden camera. I'm gonna get banned from YouTube. I'm gonna do something heinous. Not know it. I know, Astrobot. I know. Well, I mean, there will probably be gameplay streams in the future. At the very least, what I can promise is there will be gameplay. I might pre-record myself playing gameplay, so that way it's easier for me to interact with the chat, and I'll kind of do post commentary, or not commentary, but like, it'd be like right now if I was chatting with you, you just saw gameplay in the background. In the future, I might start doing some stuff like that potentially. I just don't know if it's worth it though. I don't know if that's what people actually want. It's hard for me to determine that, but I digress. The point I'm trying to get at here is that I just think that my hope is that Sony understands that, there is growth to be found for your platform, for your franchises, for your games. Elden Ring should be the biggest inspiration to, I'm not trying to like glaze From Software too much here, and maybe Elden Ring is on my mind because I'm playing Dark Souls 1 again, and I'm like, I like Dark Souls 1 better than any other From Software game. To me, there's something truly special about Dark Souls 1, and I can't quite articulate it all the time or put my finger on it. But I'm like, for as amazing and as grand as Elden Ring is, I'm like, there's something about Dark Souls. I don't know what it is with this game, but it's got something that no other game I've ever played has. However, you can see a lot of what Dark Souls is in Elden Ring. But the important thing about Elden Ring, and this is the big difference between Dark Souls and Elden Ring hit the mainstream. Elden Ring is a game that defied all logic or all odds, I guess you could say, of like, nobody in the games business would have ever told you that Demon Souls, which led to Dark Souls, that formula would eventually produce a game that's going to go on to sell like 30 million units and be one of the biggest breakout hits of all time. Nobody would have told you that. Maybe except, I mean, honestly, Hidetaka Miyazaki probably wouldn't have even said that. He's like, oh, I wasn't making this game in the hopes that it would do that. It just did that. He was just focused on making a game that was awesome. And this is where it's like, the reason why I'm highlighting Elden Ring is because to me, Elden Ring serves as proof, as like, you don't need to change anything. Like, you don't need to stop focusing on how do we appeal to them or to this group over here. Just like, when you find a formula that works and people like it and it has an audience, just focus on that. Focus on further refining it and just making it the best it can possibly be. You do that, and eventually I think you will strike gold. If you haven't already, you'll go platinum. I feel like that's what Elden Ring represents, because when I played Elden Ring, I'm like, dude, it's so crazy to me. Like, I remember booting up Dark Souls for the first time. I think I played it originally on the Xbox 360, and just that first area, Undead Burg, the Taurus demon, the dragon that flies over and you can't cross the bridge because it's killing it. I'm like, it's so crazy that exact formula where there's just something so addicting there where like, I just want to keep progressing. Oh, I ran into a Black Knight and things super scary and intimidating, and the world's interconnected, and wait, I just found a shortcut over here. All of that is what led to Elden Ring. Elden Ring is just a bigger, more fully realized version of like, how can we actually make this bigger? How can we take that formula of just the interconnected world and make it open world and still have it interconnected? And then how can we just like place boss battles in random places where you never know what you might find? It was always going to lead to Elden Ring, Dark Souls isn't necessarily open world, but the world's so interconnected, it kind of feels like it. And it took up until Elden Ring for this formula that was established originally with Demon Souls by one creator's vision. It wasn't until then that it finally found its true breakout, massive hit everybody knows what Elden Ring is, success. And I'm just shocked that, like, well, I guess I'm not shocked, but I guess my hope is that more and more publishers, not just, I'm sure creators, obviously the creators are very inspired by what From Software has done. My hope is that publishers, especially Sony, of all publishers, you worked with From Software, for God's sake. The Elden Ring should be yours. You'll let From Software go. Hopefully they understand that, like, this can work. Any of the games you're making, any of the franchises you believe in, any of the stuff that you've poured your resources and your money into, and the talent that's poured their love and care into this, like, it can grow. You just have to stick with it, give it time, and believe in it. If you build it, they will come. So, I don't know, man. All this is to say that when it comes to the PlayStation side of things, everything that Sony's telegraphing going into next gen, it sounds like maybe they are getting back to a better place, something closer to what I'm describing, where focus on making sure you can maintain what you have currently. But if you want to start growing, maybe you have to accept that growth is going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more steady. Oh, thank you, Monster Matt, for the flow state gift. What are they called? The rubies or the jewels? Thank you for the jewels. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I didn't see that. Guys, by the way, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Really appreciate you getting us to pretty much 175 likes. We're 2 likes away from hitting 175. Continue to hit that like button. Make sure you hit it if you haven't already. I don't know if it'll be possible, but it would be amazing if we could end this stream today, whenever we do it, at 200 likes. Liking it helps more than you know. Shadowlink, thank you for the 350 jewels. He says, number 1. Oh, he's making Rich Rod nice and happy. Flow state from beast mode. You know what's funny, guys? I went to go check my analytics, by the way. It still doesn't tell me how much I make on jewels. Even in the deepest part of my analytics, it literally will just tell me, here's how many jewels you were given on your stream. And I'm like, I still don't know what that means. I don't know. YouTube refuses to tell me. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's just here. Maybe it helps with the algorithm. I don't know. But I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We're going to continue our conversation here. Like I said, if you want to support the channel directly, consider gifting a membership or becoming a member. We're sitting at 16 on the day. We're less than 10 away. We're 9 away from hitting the goal. I want to see if we can hit that goal before we end today. We have time. We have a little bit of time. Thank you, Prince G, for the 10 cents for the poop. I'm assuming it's 10 cents for the poop emoji, the golden poop emoji. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are awesome. 100 gems is $1, but they're jewels. 1,000 jewels equals 100 gems. What is going on with this stuff anymore, man? I don't know. Maybe I made a mistake enabling this stuff. I didn't have to. It was optional. It was optional. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about GTA 6. As we know, later this week, actually in just a couple of days, GTA 6 pre-orders are going up. There's been a lot of conversation surrounding the pricing of GTA 6. There was apparently a leak that came out where it was being priced at like 80 or 90 euros or something, but then another insider, Bill Kuhn, came out and said, no, that's not accurate. It's just a placeholder. They're just making up prices here. I'm going to put up a poll here. Will the standard edition of GTA 6 be more? Actually, hold on. I got a better way to word this. Price of the standard edition of GTA 6. Will it be $70? Will it be $80. Will it be 90 or possibly 100 plus? All right. So I'm curious what you guys end up voting on here. I put out a poll. What price do you think the standard, now keep in mind the standard edition of GTA 6, this is just the regular version, boxed copy, or just the standard digital edition, because there seem to be quite a few people across the internet that genuinely believe what is going on with this, Cheese and Chainsaws? You're the second person to bring this up. GTA 6's DOA, no Ferris wheel reflections. Is this really a thing that people are getting hung up on? I mean, I believe it. I definitely believe it. People are strange. But oh wait, hold on. Something I missed here. Hideo Kojima unveils chilling OD image in Xbox 25th anniversary feature. Ooh. Oh, we have new details. Hold on. I want to put GTA 6 to the side because apparently we have new details on OD, which is the upcoming horror game from Kojima. Kojima Productions OD, new details and screenshot. Filming has properly begun with the actors. Oh. Will be a new game system. Kojima had the concept since Death Stranding 1. Okay, I don't know what that means. Pitched to many different companies. It was Phil Spencer and Xbox who saw the vision. Kojima says, quote, "They said that I'm crazy and that they really don't understand the concept, that they will not be able to do it," end quote. Oh, no. Oh, no. Phil was the one. Phil's not even there anymore, bro. Wants it to be the scariest game possible. That sounds exciting. There's a system that will allow players who are too scared to keep playing. Details will be revealed later. Hold on, let me get the screenshot. Dude, I love that. I tried to pitch it to everybody else, and everybody was like, "Nah, bro, you sound insane. This ain't gonna work." Phil's like, Kojima-san, I think I really see your vision. He's not even there anymore, bro. Oh, no. They're letting Kojima run rampant. No, this screenshot looks pretty sick, though. Check this out. This is the new OD screenshot. I mean, you can see this. What is that, a woman? Like with blonde hair? Standing at the doorway? Something on the TV? I mean, I'm all for OD, man. I'm really curious. I'm really curious how it turns out because it feels like it's genuinely a continuation of what PT was supposed to be. There you go. Those are the new details on OD. Graphics look kind of insane. I'm excited for it. Really, really, really interesting to me that Sony passed on this. I think they passed on it anyway. I have to imagine Kojima probably tried pitching this to Sony, and Sony was like, "Nah, bro. Doors on the right look mid." Did I hear lightning? I did not. No. TV in the hall? That's crazy. That is crazy. Why is there a TV in the hall? Insanity. You want Sony to do their own Resident Evil type franchise? Stop it, Titus. Stop. There's another report here. Now, this is coming from Grok from Twitter. So it says The rumor stems from a June 12th report by The Information, which detailed internal talks about spinning off Xbox as an independent company, restructuring it like LinkedIn, or forming a joint venture to address falling console sales, slim 3% margins, and a $500 million revenue drop. New CEO Asha Sharma is driving changes, including post-June 30th layoffs, marketing cuts, and focusing on hits like Halo and Fallout, while Game Pass and cloud gaming stay key. Fans joked about Elon Musk buying it as Xbox, or the X logo, or Nintendo stepping in, but Microsoft hasn't commented and recently celebrated Xbox's 25th anniversary. So I don't. Oh, okay. So this comes from Valuetainment. Valuetainment, enlighten, entertain, and empower current and future leaders around the world. This post that they put out just in, Microsoft is reportedly considering selling Xbox. And that's it. No context. They got community noted. Okay. Well, there you go. It got community noted, and it says Microsoft is considering options for Xbox, including a spin-off, restructuring as a wholly owned subsidy or joint venture, not an outright sale. Okay. Well, apparently on Twitter, your post can still trend even if it got community noted. So, alrighty. Sorry for that detour. It's still trending. At least for me, it says today's news, Xbox sale rumor revived from June report. I'm telling you, man, only on Twitter. Like on Twitter, you can just make things trend that you want to. Like I want this to trend. Let's just make it trend. Is there any relevance? Is there anything at all? No. Anyway, it being a subsidiary makes sense either way. Easier to dodge some shareholders, also easier to sell. I do think that that's going to happen, actually. Like, unless something big occurs where they just get a big influx of money and profitability, in the next, quarter or something. But, I mean, it would be very interesting to see what Xbox could maybe try to do maneuver-wise, being a subsidy. Am I going to buy Xbox with mafia money? No. No, I don't think I'm going to get Project Helix. I'll be honest, man, going into next generation, Sony's going to be, they're going to be selling a PlayStation 6 and a PlayStation handheld. I'm probably going to be more interested in buying both of those than I am something like Project Helix. I will be interested to see the rollout of Project Helix. I want to see how Microsoft plans to put this box out there. Is it going to be more of a traditional console? Are they really going to try to lean into the PC side? What exclusives will they have? I mean, they're starting with Gears of War E-Day and Clockwork Revolution. I'm not interested in either. Neither of those games are going to be enough to push me to buy something like a Helix. We just talked about OD. We don't know if Blade's getting canceled or not. So there's a lot of questions for the Xbox side of things. But as it stands right now, I don't think I'm going to be buying Helix, but I'm open to them changing my mind over time. Absolutely. I don't know if they will, though. Don't waste money on a handheld you won't play. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'll get it right away. The PlayStation 6 home console is the absolute priority for me. The handheld I could see myself getting later on and, seeing how I like it down the road. If they sell both at the same time, I don't think I'll be getting both at the same exact time. But yeah, if I had to choose between the PlayStation 6 or the handheld, if they both come out at the same time, I'm going with the PS6. I want the home console. Stick to PS5, MBG. Don't waste money on the PS6. Well, I mean, look, I already told you guys I have every incentive in the world to buy PlayStation 6 day one, more so than you guys do. But I am still excited for it. I know that a lot of people are not, but it's like I said earlier in the stream, I expect Sony to absolutely delight me next year. They're going to have a big show. They're going to really try to convince me and you. Why are you going to want a PS6? You tell me, Sony. I'm ready and waiting. I'm listening. I'm watching. Let me know. We will see. Yeah, I mean, if I do get the PlayStation handheld at some point, I will have to fight to find a use case for it. So if it's going to be premium and it's going to be expensive, it's very likely something that will come later, because I'm like, yeah, I'm not trying to immediately jump into buying something that I'm going to have to not force myself to use, but like, you know, I play sitting on a couch and at the TV. But I don't know. I kind of am interested in the idea of like the first PlayStation handheld since the Vita. Because I was there for the PSP. I wasn't there for the Vita, but it kind of feels a little bit exciting in that sense, where it's like, man, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. Yeah, it probably will be expensive, $500-$600. Rich, why are you saying that? Why are you doing that, bro? Guys, we're probably going to wrap this stream up in 10 minutes or so. So we'll do kind of like a last call here. If you want to drop any more support, we'll have a 10-minute window to make that happen. Memberships, super chats, direct donations, all that good stuff. In 10 minutes, we're going to be wrapping it up. Let me see what you guys are voting for on the poll here. Most of you guys think it's going to be $70 for GTA 6. I agree. All right, I have a report here. I'm going to read it real quick. I'm just curious to see what you guys think of this, because I feel like we've talked about this in the before in the past. Japanese comedian and YouTuber Aiko Kano, I don't know if I said his name correctly, famous for his spectacularly chaotic playthroughs of the Resident Evil series, recently talked about an exchange he had with Shinji Mikami, the director of the original Resident Evil and Resident Evil 4, on the topic of playthrough videos and gaming streams. As reported by Nikon? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. On June 18th, Kano appeared on a TV program dedicated to sharing badass anecdotes from his life, and the moment he looked back on as exceptionally cool was his encounter with Mikami. Gaming streams can become a sensitive topic among game developers, particularly in Japan, with opinions divided on whether they're simply a beneficial form of free marketing or conversely lead to a loss of opportunity as people consume games through viewing and don't actually end up buying them. Given these circumstances, Kano had been concerned about his own streaming activities at the time. Although he had explicit permission from Capcom, the fact that he was essentially spoiling the stories and puzzles of Resident Evil titles made him anxious about whether the creators behind them felt uncomfortable with it. When he later got an opportunity to meet Mikami in person, he decided to ask him directly about his stance. Although Kano was fully prepared to stop streaming if he got a negative answer, Mikami reportedly responded, quote, "If viewers watch a playthrough of the game all the way to the end and are satisfied with just that, then it was only that good of a game," end quote. He went on to explain, quote, "Our job is to make games that leave people wanting to clear them with their own hands, even if they've watched someone else do it. So keep streaming," end quote. This suggests Mikami considers developers fully responsible for how exposure through playthroughs will affect their games. Incidentally, Kano adds that he has received almost the exact same response from Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horii on the matter, although this doesn't seem to be reflected in Square Enix's streaming guidelines for the series so much. It says here, too, that interestingly, Square Enix's Naoki Hamaguchi, who's directing the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, expressed a similar sentiment not long ago, commenting that with playthroughs becoming increasingly popular nowadays, RPGs need to evolve in a way that make viewers itch to play themselves rather than just consume the story. So I just kind of wanted to know what you guys think of this. Like, do you agree with what he's saying here? I think that this is a really interesting insight into developers. I never really thought about this. I never thought about how developers might feel about the idea of people choosing to just consume their game through streaming and or watching playthroughs, and we know that's extremely common. And we were talking earlier about how do you grow the market. It's hard to grow a market in the AAA game space when so many people are like, why would I spend hundreds of dollars on hardware and then between 70 and $100 a pop depending on the game and the version you want to buy of that game, when I can just boot up YouTube, which is free, and watch somebody play it myself. Or I can experience the game vicariously through them for like $0. And it's interesting. I kind of like that sentiment from Shinji Mikami. I just wonder how true it is, though. Like Shinji Mikami says, if people are watching the playthrough, all the way to the end, and they don't feel the need to play the game themselves, then basically we didn't do a good enough job. Like that's crazy. I mean, that's definitely a very Japanese answer, I would say. Like that sounds like, yeah, I could see you guys. It's like we failed. We didn't convince them it was worth playing, but I like the idea that they're taking it into their hands. Like we can change that, right? And I guess I do wonder like what the psychology is. I mean, it is interesting to think like depending on which game you're choosing to watch, you watch a YouTuber play game A and you watch for a couple hours and you're like, man, I got to play this thing myself. But then you watch them play game B and you're like, I'm okay. I'm just going to watch them play the whole thing. I don't really need to go play this. I wonder what really creates that difference there. And it has to be like, I would assume gameplay heavy games have a higher chance of convincing the viewer, I need to go buy this game and play it myself, compared to very like cinematic, ironically enough, when we talk about PlayStation, very cinematic games. I think, you could kind of see how people become more engrossed and just kind of being okay with watching it play out as it is, as it's going. Devil Shooter saying, I watch Let's Plays all the time. Normally I play the game beforehand. The ones I don't and I like what I see, I go buy it, play it, and finish the LP. Interesting. Oh, by the way, yeah, Devil Shooter, I should be able to get to you. I'll contact you a little bit later on today. So just want to let you know that. Is OD an Xbox exclusive? It's being published and funded by Microsoft. No word on exclusivity. We haven't heard anything about platforms yet. I think it's safe to say it's not going to be exclusive. I'd be surprised if it was. There are some people who only play games for stories, so if they can get that from watching it while getting the social aspects from chatting in the stream. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've honestly, I've never, not never, like there was only, ironically enough, I said I was replaying Dark Souls. One of the only times I ever watched like a full playthrough of a game was, I forget the name of the YouTuber. It was a famous Dark Souls YouTuber. I don't know. It's years ago. I mean, we're talking like 2012. I played the game myself, obviously, but there was like one YouTuber who did a playthrough that I actually decided to watch the whole playthrough. But that's it. I don't really watch people play games. I don't know. I'm maybe it's because I do play games for a living, technically to an extent, but it's like, I don't know. I'm at a point where like the only time I'll watch gameplay is if I feel skeptical about a game. It's like I'm not sure if I actually want to buy it or not, and so I'll like YouTube it real quick and watch 10, 15 minutes and be like, get an idea of like, do I think I'll be interested in this or not? But I don't really sit down and watch the playthroughs. I'm always just interested in playing the game myself if I can. Like even if I can't play the game myself for whatever reason, or it's like I can't get around to it, I just put it on the backlog. You like watching speed plays of Resident Evil? Oh yeah, speed runs. Prince, you hate playthroughs? You'll watch bits of playthroughs just to see their reactions to specific things? Why me? You're saying Asha is on board with OD and says they're looking for, you said for me, third-party partners. It might be exclusive. I mean, if I was her, I would make it exclusive. Yeah. Um, I feel like you know that this is the first opportunity that Microsoft has had to work with Kojima. And if she's serious about like, yeah, we really need to convince people Xbox is worth buying, like, well, Sony has an exclusive Kojima game with Fizzant. And believe me when I tell you, Microsoft, you're not getting Fizzant. So you got OD, you might want to consider making that exclusive. The only reason I think it's not going to be is because the way Hideo Kojima has pitched this game, he really makes it sound like this is something that can't be exclusive. I don't know. It's weird. He's pitching it as something strange, something different. By the way, guys, we are at 189 likes. I want to try to push for 11 more likes. Can we get to 200 likes? If you haven't hit that like button, please do me a favor and hit it now. We're going to be wrapping the stream up in just a minute. If you want to drop any more support, now is the time to do it because we are wrapping up in less than a minute. All right. Oh, Persona. Yeah, Devil Shooter. You're one of those people, huh? You want me to play Persona 5 one day? I doubt that's ever going to happen. People have been asking me for years to play that game. Who knows? Maybe when I'm an old man. We'll see. The contract will have been signed before she got there. That's true. They could always renegotiate, though, if Kojima's up for it. But yeah, guys, hit that like button. Come on, I know we can do it. I know we can hit 200 likes. I did play Expedition 33. That's true. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Press X Podcast, though. Just to look at the poll results, I asked you guys how much you think the standard edition of, I said GT, I forgot to put the A, but GTA 6 would be. 46% of you said $70, 37% said $80, 10% said $90, only 7% believes it would be more than $100, $100 or more dollars. So there you go. But guys, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Really appreciate that. I want to give a big thank you to anybody who dropped any direct support. We hit 16 members today, so we didn't hit the goal, but we still got 16 members. Thank you to everybody who contributed to that. Thank you to everybody who dropped any super chats or direct donations. We are completely fan funded. I can only do this show and do these streams and run this channel because you guys make it possible. So massive shout out to the to those of you who are supporting directly, and big thank you to everybody who's watching. I also want to make sure to give a shout out to Devil Shooter, who does the timestamps for the streams. I know a lot of people rely on those timestamps when the show is done. So if you see Devil Shooter in the comments with them, give him some thanks, show him some love. I know he appreciates it. Devil Shooter, thank you for what you do, man. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up today's show. I did put out a news video earlier. If you want to go support the channel further, if you didn't already watch that, go check it out. And make sure, again, you're hitting that like button as you're heading out. And yeah, that's it. So guys, enjoy the rest of your day, evening or night. The only reason I shouldn't be live tomorrow is if for some reason we get a bad power outage. And if by this time tomorrow I don't have power, I won't be able to stream. Hopefully that won't happen. But yeah, stay safe. And guys, I will catch you all in the next one. So until then, take care, everyone.